welcome back everybody to the LTA South Twitch channel. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by RMC for another day of South American League of Legends. Now, we are halfway through the positioning phase of Best of Ones. We've got 3 more days to go, including today, before we go to the groups. And we have started to see some clear favorites. Not all of the same favorites we saw at the end of Split 1, that's for sure. And a general trend that we've seen. Split 1 was the redemption, the arrival of the LLA, and they smashed Brazil, and they knocked them down. They came top 2, and they went on to the cross-conference play, as we can see in this conference bracket. Thank you, Rose. Now, that has not been the case in Split 2, has it, RMC? You've seen a different story so far.
No, Trajan, and that's why when you said the standings are clear, our favorites are clear, I feel like it's clear as mud right now. We had Pain dropping a game yesterday, and they looked fantastic after the first week. Leviathan, another 2-0 team, though, struggling a little bit more, has also dropped the game. Meanwhile, Fuxu W7M, they won their first game of not just the split, Trajan, but of the year. And then,
yes,
let's look at who's at the bottom there. Tied for 7th, 8th. You know, when we saw the bracket from last bit, I'm pretty sure it has both those teams as a top 4 team. But here we are, Loud and Isurus Estral, 0-3. They cannot find a win right now with the map and compass.
Yes, it is a bit disastrous for Loud and Isurus Estral. Leviathan as well, you can see up there. Second, quote-unquote, second place, 2-1, but these wins, RMC, are not looking like very enjoyable, reliable wins. They are not looking clean, they're not looking well put together, they're not looking like the Leviathan we saw in Split 1.
No, not at all. If we think back to Split 1, Leviathan, and, well, it's Estral, they played completely differently, but the LA was shocking us, surprising us, exciting us with their plays. And Leviathan especially was spicy. Their early game had action. Scary and Pro Delta, the Brazilians on this roster, were leading the charge, making things happen in the early game. But fast forward to Split 2, and suddenly Scary and Pro Delta aren't able to do that. We're not finding significant lane leads. And the mid-game, Trajan, the mid-game doesn't exist for Leviathan or for Isurus Estral. The LATAM teams don't have a mid-game, and I don't know what's going on. But they're not the only teams without a mid-game, Trajan, because the first match today is Leviathan versus Loud.
Yeah.
And Loud, too, can't seem to find their way in the middle of the rift.
They're going backwards, man. We said this on the podcast, we said this coming into the season, that this Loud roster direction is not one that I have a lot of faith in. I don't think it's progress, I think it's regression, and that's what it looks like on the Rift. They look like they've forgotten what they need to do, they look lost, they don't look well put together. Even when you're trying to mesh, as you've said, the veterans of Robo and Tinones with the other veterans of Shinny and Redbird. These are not new players. It's not like we're throwing rookies in with all the experienced players. These are very experienced, title-winning players. Some of them, at least in Redbird's case, who've even played on Loud with these players before. But they don't look connected up. It looks like they don't know what to do together, and they're just never on the same page. You cannot put a 5v5 game of League of Legends victory together like this.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you point out it's really the connection that's the issue. Because in their individual lanes, Loud isn't really having problems in their laning phase. Robo has been popping off individually. He's been doing fantastically. The team as a whole right now actually have the second highest gold difference at 50. Now, it's not huge. It's plus 535, which across every single lane is like 100 gold. That's like a couple of minions, less than a wave, right? But they're fine in their lanes. They're happy, moisturized, unbothered. The problem is when they get out their lanes, then we've got problems. And we're looking at Shinny, we're looking at Redbird. These guys are the veterans supposed to tie everybody together. Your jungler, who makes plays happen, ganks away, plays for objectives. Your support is supposed to roam out to help them. Well, the moment that happens, everything falls apart. And I'll tell you this much. I don't think it's Shinny and Redbird's connection that's the problem. It's them connecting with everybody else on their team.
Yeah, I mean, time and again, the jungle supports. The champions are often geared to being playmakers in the early phase. The support has room to roam. The jungle is built for CC and utility a lot of the times. We're seeing a lot of Sejuani again in this season. It's not necessarily the carries of so much of previous splits, and the Vi is another great example of that, as we've seen in that first pick. So we're into the draft right here. Let's catch up on it real quick. Sejuani, MF, and Ashe banned away by Leviathan on your blue side, and then Kalista, Varus, Yone banned away by Loud. So bot lane focus on both sides. 4 Premier AD carries taken off the board. The Sejuani denied as well, and the Vi, kind of the other most common choice, was the first pick for Lev.
Yeah, a little bit shocked that Lev banned Sejuani when they're on blue side, and Scary has played nothing but Sejuani so far this split. And then prioritizing Vi over that, Trajan, I'm not a fan of this. I've not been a fan of Vi personally for quite a while, and a lot of times if we see the Vi, I'm expecting to see the Ahri come along with her, but Ahri with the Roa build honestly doesn't feel that impactful alongside that Vi right now. It feels like they don't have enough damage to burst out some of these targets, especially in the early game.
Yeah, now the response from Loud has been classic successful picks for their key carries. The Rumble for Robo looked excellent in that game against Pain, I think it was. It was not a win for Loud, but Robo did exceptionally into Wiser on this champion, and Tinons as well on the Azir. The same carries from that game where Loud looked the best were against their old nemesis Pain, and these were the picks they had. So Robo and Tinons going back to what works. The Gwen pickup for Zoffy, another kind of fighter, a bit of a carry element for Zoffy. This seems to be his modus operandi. It's the Ambessa, it's now the Gwen, so that's going to be the choice as the Ahri locks in for Cody. Nothing exciting, interesting for the mid lane. It's going back to another old reliable for Lev, and Cody has done great work on this pick. We've actually seen a lot of mid laners do great work on the Ahri so far in Split 2.
Yeah, not gonna lie though, Trajan, it got me excited when I saw the Akali hover. We talked about Cody as the best mid laner in not just LATAM, but in LTA South, at least in Split 1. Uncontested, by the way. Like, nobody's even close. Up against Tinons, who's been called the Brazilian Faker in the past. That matchup should be exciting. And if you've got an Akali, that's when you get to show your hands. But with the Ahri right now, it's going to be a lot more still, a lot more boring. Leviathan with a lot of autonomous champions. There's a lot of agency here. They're looking for skirmishes, not necessarily the big wombo combo team fights. That's Loud's sort of composition that we've got coming here with the Rumble, with the Azir, with the Ezreal. Now, they need AoE CC in the jungle, in the support role for Loud to set up Robo.
Yes, the Root Ezreal locked in, a pick that emerged somewhat recently for him in the LTA South, but very impactful on the good games. His Root Ezreal can look very, very good, obviously very self-sufficient, and is a good core of carries that they've got there. Plenty of damage across all the lanes, all stages of the game. So we'll see what the Shinny Redbird combination is going to be, right? This is the piece that needs to slot in and fit around and enable these carries, and that's what Loud has been missing. So we'll see in the second rotation how they're going to approach that one. Lev trying to deny some of these best enablers. The Skarner taken away from Shinny, that has been a classic for him since he returned to professional play. And now the Kai'Sa threaded out by Loud. The Draven as well, trying to take away these good answers for Sayo in the lane.
Okay, I don't say it was good, but 4 bans against Sayo does feel a little bit like overkill.
He's that guy.
He is, you know what? I mean, he can still whip out something like a Lucian Nami. Like, I feel like that with Prods would be a bot lane that could certainly do a lot in terms of skirmishing. A bit of a shocker for sure. The Maokai and Skarner being taken away. I really like the Skarner ban. I think Shinny's best champion. Even last year was the Skarner. He's really able to lead the charge with that champion, but there's still the likes of a Wukong. If you want something that can try and engage, please don't do the Xin Zhao. It's one of Shinny's more played champions, but it really doesn't fit this combo.
Well, we've got some terrible news. The Xin Zhao has been locked in for Shinny there, so if you're looking in a vacuum, nameplates off, why is it a bad pick? Forget the Shinny history. Why do you not like it this combo?
You've got a Rumble. You want to set up for your Rumble. And on top, well, I can't nameplates off this because it's Robo's Rumble as well, which he did fantastically on. Like, play for it. That's your big carry condition. Instead, now you pick something that's going to break things up. And into what Leviathan want, you're just playing into their hands. They want you to be split up, so the moment that Crescent Guard comes through, they're more than happy to use it as a disengage to get away, re-engage again after. So it just feels very, very counterintuitive. I'm trying to think what support you want to pair with that too. Now you need like a tank support, so you can't go Enchanter to buff up the Xin Zhao, but all the tank supports want the enemy to be clustered. Xin Zhao wants them apart. Yeah,
I mean, traditionally we have seen Redbird just lock in Alistair's, Leona's, Nautilus's in the past, and these are all available. They're all still playable. The Rel has been the choice for Pro Delta. When it comes to engages, this has always been his single highest performing, most impressive engager. And he's going to lock it in with the Jhin for Sayo. So not necessarily a late game 1v9er for Sayo, but something that is still very, very strong. The Jhin is actually still in a very decent point in the meta. So we'll see what Redbird's going to have. It's the Braum. So it's not activity, really. It's not super good at finding the plays, finding the aggressive moves itself. It looks like we're kind of relying on Shinny just going in, or maybe like a big shuffle from Tinons if you want to actually force action right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of my problem with this Loud composition. In a vacuum, it just doesn't... It's got a lot of individual tools, but it's very disparate. You've got a lot of dysynergy internally. That said, I do think it fits the style of Loud as they are right now. We've said before that Shinny and Redbird don't seem to be able to connect quite well with Robo. Tinons, Root's kind of doing his own thing. Well, this comp screams that to me, right? Like, Robo's going to be able to do his own thing. Ideally, he'd like set up, but even without it, we've seen him do work. Tinons on the Azir, that's a champion he can play when he doesn't trust anybody else. He's got playmaking, he's got safety. Same with Root. I feel like this Ezreal for Root we've been seeing it a lot more since Croc left this team. Because without Croc, it just feels like maybe he doesn't have that same connection with Wiz prior, with Shinny now, and so he's going, you know what, if I don't have a jungler or even a support that I really, really trust, I just want a champion where I can kind of do my own thing. And then, of course, we talked about needing a tank in the bot lane. Brom's perfectly that. So, in a way, I do think Loud have drafted to what their players want or need right now, rather than what is meta, or to deal with what the enemy team, Leviathan in this case, has drafted.
Yeah, if we're looking to see one of these teams rectify or acquire a mid-game at some point, which they have not been able to buy so far in Split 2 of the LTA South, I'm not looking to Loud at this point to find this, because we just don't have that much ways of making plays happen aggressively. I'm looking at Leviathan to say, can you show us something? As one of the LLA representatives from the team side at least, and then on the Rift, 3 LLA players, 2 Brazilian players, this merger that worked so well in Split 1, achieving second place over anyone's expectations for this roster. Now we need to see if they can get back to what was working, because it has been a rough start for them, as it has been for Loud. And we'll get onto the Rift just now for the first game of the day right here. Just a quick aside for everybody. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We are, of course, a fully volunteer-run broadcast here at the LTA South. We really appreciate everybody following the stream. If you have the capability, if you have primes to offer, if you subscribe, we very much appreciate it. It all helps us put on this show that we've been putting on for many years. And we are just very thrilled to have you all here.
Yeah, and you know, just getting your eyes on here is a lot of is good for us as well. We really appreciate y'all watching it and watching one of the most entertaining regions. Now, that situation, I don't know how entertaining this game will be necessarily, because we talk a lot about how yeah, that's me hitting the follow button. Thank you very much. Just to, you know, that's free to hit the follow button. But yeah, I don't know how much excitement we're going to see in the laning phase, to be honest. I think the lanes for Loud have been very, very stable for the most part, and they're more than happy to sit back and scale. That has been Loud's modus operandi, even when they were in their dynastic phase, when they were winning everything, when they had their 4 straight championships. Yeah, they don't make early game action. And with the mid game being as lacking as it is for both these teams, I'm a little bit concerned. They've got the go buttons. Let's not mince our words about that, right? Shinny's got the Xinjiao he wants to go in. Scary's picking a Vi. If you're not ganking by level 8, if I don't see a single cease and desist by then, something's gone wrong. And Prods is on his signature rel. So there should be action. I'm hoping there is, but these teams right now, a lot of things have gone wrong for them, and I find it hard to trust these teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I very much did not necessarily believe that week 1 was a true representation of a lot of things, but as it stands from yesterday's performance, it does seem like it actually has been holding true. Leviathan's still struggling, Loud and Isris Estral still struggling, and these teams like Fury are still continuing on their rise that we'll see play later on today against Flux UW7M, who picked up their first win. There has been a change in the direction of the wind here at the LTA South between Split 1 and 2.
Even between week 1 and 2, which is why it's so interesting as well. And let's not forget the format that we have this particular split. We're starting the positioning phase. It's a single round robin for seeding for the second phase, which is the group phase, where the teams get split into 2 groups. And that's when we start seeing teams get cut. The bottom 2 teams in the group phase will not make it to playoffs. 5th and 6th coming out of that will be single elimination. Shinny, though, seeing Cody pushed up, trying to make some action happen, but without the gap closers, Cody guessed right, and Scary's here to reinforce.
Just in case Shinny wants to force the issue. Wouldn't expect it, though. The Vi Ahri, a classic combination in the mid-jungle due to its power in that laning phase, especially when the ults come online. Cody as well. We see he's taken the electrocute here today. We have seen a raft of more sustained kind of heavy Ahri builds with the Rod of Ages, the Riftmaker. We've seen that put to great use in the hands of players like Kissy in the past in this split already. So we'll see if Cody wants to go that way, wants to go a little burstier. We'll see what kind of tickles his fancy in this game, as the Vi Ahri does really need to be active in that mid game, right? We want them to be getting stuck in, finding those burst assassinations to keep the pace moving.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling it's still going to be Rod of Ages. That just seems flavor of the month, and we know what that means here in the LTA South. Whether or not they can actually execute, they're going to do it anyways. We got the try view. yeah.
Okay, Robo.
Scary's looking to gank Robo. I don't know.
Sophie's got that Q stacked up. If you can get a little bit of damage to get Q over the lines, flash away by Robo. Scary takes a shot and has to flash himself. Robo holds up well in the 1v2, as we have seen from in the past. As Cody, not so much.
And Trajan, I was going to say, when we got that try view, it was an interesting sort of snapshot we got to see, where Leviathan's pushing across all 3 lanes, but they're taking more trait damage for it. Their health is lower. And that just sets up perfectly for Shinny to go with whichever lane he wants. They're all gankable. They're all punishable. Nobody's level 6 yet. They don't have their escapes. So Leviathan's rather immobile. And they're lower in health, pushing up. That is a perfect setup. Shinny able to punish that, while Robo, like we said, the current star player for Loud and arguably the GOAT of Brazil, the most championships under his belt, he's more than happy to soak that pressure. And it's just so easy. The Cody taking the extra turret shot was just icing on the cake. Even without that, Shinny probably gets the kill. But with it, Shinny did hardly even break step in his walk across mid lane.
I mean, Cody literally just had a ward in that brush. We saw them place it, and it was still there. And my guy was not paying attention. He was just not looking at his mid-map. And does not see Shinny come around the corner. There's no way you'd be walking up like that if you're aware of what's going on. So a bit of a misstep by Cody, unfortunately. Does give the gold over to Shinny, so not necessarily in his individual matchup, but Xin Zhao wants to get rolling in that early stage and can become a fearsome duelist if he does. Approaching level 6 before too long. Dragon now an option with the grubs coming soon after, and we'll see how these teams want to approach that, if they want to go for the trade, if they want to try and get greedy and take both sides. Of course, most of these teams do have decent early games, at least by eye test and statistically for Loud with that gold diff that you mentioned in the pregame, so maybe we'll see them get a little bit feisty and try to take it all, or if they are just going to go for a nice, cool, calm swap.
Yeah, you can already see the goal difference we're talking about, plus 525. It's basically there for Loud right now, off that first blood, right?
Tracking perfectly.
Yep, I mean, early even, topside, Zothfi. This is what I find really interesting. Zothfi is perma-pushed right now up against Robo, but every time we look up here, Robo's winning the trades. He's got more health. He's 6.
On level 6. Are we holding this one? Zothfi does have the exhaust right now as well. Goes in for it, pops the needlework. One last launch of it. There it is! Robo gets away, and just like that, again, as we palm down to the mid lane, it's Leviathan losing out, as again, Robo holds up under the pressure.
Could this be it? Can Loud finally find their first win of the split against Leviathan, the 2nd seed in the first split? Trajan, it's looking like it, and I was a bit worried we'd have a very sort of wash in the early game, like a nothing burger, but Shinny's getting some action down, and I love that it's with Tidons. This is the connection that hasn't happened till now. Tidons has had some of the lowest kill participation in the entire league, and as a mid laner, that's illegal. You're in the middle of the map. You should be part of the action, and Tidons hasn't been it. So Shinny getting in there, working with Tidons, that feels like what Loud is missing. We didn't get to see what was happening early. It just looks like Scary got caught in his jungle in the dark, and Shinny's been perma-aggressive. Tidons finally gets pushed and is able to make good on it.
Yeah, and it's just punished coming through there. We saw the ward that was placed down near that jungle area to just give that information. Shinny knows he can go for it and does. Well executed by the veteran Loud jungler. Sayo and Pro Delta still pushing in that bot side. They are doing very comfortably. We're not seeing too much action. Of course, the Ezreal Braum, not necessarily known for the heavy 2v2 actions after the first couple of levels. Redbert, not with the best roaming pick with that Braum as well. So we'll likely see this kind of continue. I'm wondering if Pro Delta is going to get unlocked on the map a little bit more. That is more what I'd expect from him, is the roaming support style, especially with Arel that has the CC to offer.
Yeah, and I suspect that Prodelta's kind of locked in lane a little bit by the fact that Scary's actually fallen behind. So the ganks aren't quite as effective. True Shot Barrage comes across just for a little bit of poke onto prods. It's worth noting as well, by the way, while all this was happening, we're looking bot lane. Despite the fact that he's behind, despite the fact that he's been killed, Scary actually managed to snag all 3 grubs, while Shinny went for the dragon instead, which is a bit of a surprise when so far this split, teams have been prioritizing grubs over these early dragons.
Yes, it has been a little bit of a shift right there. As Loud picks up the Ocean Grubs for Leviathan. Scary on the top side with an ult available. Now, Robo does have the flash. He does have Shinny in the back pocket as well, as Zothfi forcing the issue. Gets great damage to start it off. Shinny is going to maybe look for the re-engagement. Q's in, does Scary. Misses it. Has to commit, and both junglers now really want to get the kill on either side, but Shinny has it. Scary doesn't, as Robo had the flash still in the pocket.
And Cody's roaming up for backup. He has the Spirit Rush available with the flash as well.
Oh, the double Q, in fact, as Shinny tries to get in the way. Pops the ultimate, now goes very low. Scary dropping down. Redbert has actually roamed in. Flashes, W's into range. Cody abandoned in the alcove. 1v3. Scary can pull one back, but it's a double for Shinny. Disaster for Leviathan on that top play.
Wind becomes lightning, rain becomes blood as Shinny makes it rain topside. 5-0 right now. Tidons with the knockback onto prods, but just to get out to safety, and Loud is trying to take over. Shinny is the storm that is approaching. He's making action happen everywhere, and right now Lev need to track where Shinny is, because where he goes, their kills go to.
Can we take a quick check on Shinny? 5-0 on the Xin Zhao. 1,500 gold ahead. Half the total gold lead at this 9-minute mark. This is a massive start for the Loud jungler that has not looked on the same page, that has been visibly on player camera trying to find where his team is. When these plays go off, we can see him shaking his head and looking around, but he is looking well buttoned up today as we see a replay of that top fight.
Yeah, and Robo's just been fantastic, right? Even when Loud was looking lost in week 1, even when they looked like they were struggling yesterday, Robo has been the bright shining point. And the biggest difference right now between these two top laners is actually their summoners. The fact that Zothvi doesn't have flash, Robo did. So when we saw the junglers kind of split, Robo was able to flash to safety, Zothvi wasn't able to. And then, at this part, the roams made all the difference. Now, Redbird actually walked all the way out from base to make it here, whereas Cody just kind of went from the mid lane. But it was enough. The fact that Robo lived was enough. They had the extra bit of damage to be able to turn the tides. They had the extra bodies, the extra abilities as well. And it really felt like Lev was chasing a bad debt. You know, they got caught in the fallacy of just like continuing to have to add things in to try and salvage the situation, but they just gave more and more and more kills over. And now this top side of the map, Leviathan doesn't get a play here anymore. Robo's too far ahead, Shinny's too far ahead. And meanwhile, because Leviathan chased top instead of trying to answer bot, Tenons and Root, they're fine. They survived the 1v1, and Tenons is actually up CS from that Cody room.
Yeah, it is all working out for Loud on this top side, and all Root and Redbird have had to do is just hang about Redbird with a timely roam, and Root just picking up as much CS as he can, going dead even with Seo's Jhin right now. So Leviathan very much on the back foot and not with the scaling advantage. Yes, they do actually have some decent tools in the mid game. Their ults are all available, and if they can find some plays, find some picks, they might be able to get their way back into it. But as it stands, the onus is on them to make something happen in this mid game, to not just sit back and let Loud scale with their Azir, with their Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, they still have the Ahri Vi combo, which is supposedly so potent in the mid game, but I'm looking at the items right now. I'm looking at Cody's build, and he's got a whole garage sale running there. He's got a Sapphire Crystal, he's got an Amp Tome, he's got 2 rings even, but no real completed items. Okay, Lost Chapter just got built as well, so I don't know necessarily we're going to see the Roa build. I think at this point, you're so far behind. If you go for Rod of Ages, there's just... Leviathan already doesn't usually have a mid game. If you try and go Rod of Ages, Cody is not going to have a mid game, and heck, he might not even have a late game, the amount of time it takes to stack.
Yeah, you do not have 10 minutes to spare to stack that Rod of Ages. He's scary, completing the Sundered Sky at least. Second set of grubs going over to Loud Shinny, splitting that one across the Rift. The Dragon still lying unattended. But we'll see if Loud want to move down and pick that one up. Of course, Shinny, to be honest, just get as much work done as you can right now while you're so monstrously ahead, because there's just nothing Leviathan can do when Shinny is there, it feels.
Yeah, and Leviathan know it as well. They aren't trying to contest for this dragon. Instead, they're playing away from him. I like this call.
Ooh, Prodelta roaming up, catches onto Robo, now without the flash, I think. And finally, Zothvi is able to pick 1 kill up. He's going to crash the wave too. So Leviathan getting something going on top side as Shinny finally passed down to bot for the dragon.
Yeah, interesting patient play. Equalizer was available for Robo, but he opted not to use it. As you said, his flash was down at that point. His TP is still down too. So he's going to lose out a lot of this wave, and Zothvi is going to get a couple of plates as well on this top side, while Tinon's able to answer into the bot lane. And for Leviathan, this is what we wanted to see from them a little bit of the proactivity, find a lane to play through. I don't like the fact they keep focusing on Robo to make it happen, but hey, it paid off, so you can't really argue with this particular one. And it just starts off with Robo playing aggressive. He's up a level, he's stronger, he knows it, but Prodelta with the roam up, I think, caught them a little bit off guard. He's been sitting by CEO for so long that it almost feels like they forgot that Prodelta originally was a big roamer.
Yes, exactly right. That's what we expected to see. We commented on it in the early game, and we did finally see Prodelta pull off a successful roam, and that does get Zothvi over the hump into that Riftmaker first item. We've got a Collector finished for Seo as well, alongside the Triforce for Root. So some value coming through with the recall cancelled by the Loud bot laner. And Leviathan now with a chance to maybe stabilize. We're going to hit the 40-minute mark. The plates are going to fall off, and we're going to see them hopefully with enough damage to try and find some picks, find some kills, and it's going to be up for Loud to be ready for that. They can't expect Leviathan to just sit back and do nothing.
To be fair, Leviathan has done that this one. in the mid game.
Well, so sometimes, yes, they have been less active than we expect, but not so right now. As ProDelta once again arriving top lane, gets a flash out of Shinny, sliding away goes Tinones, does not want to mess around with this one, and let's see the answer now in bot lane. Robo does have the flash this time, he's way closer to the tower. Levi tries to predict it, they commit for the dive anyway, and Scary is slowed. Can they at least get one back? Sothby desperately hunting, but he's slowed by the harpoon, and Robo with the double kill on the dive.
What day is it, Trajan? It's Rob's day. Like always, Shinny getting the dive onto mid lane as well. Blew the flash top, wasn't able to execute, but in the mid lane with the collapse. And Trajan, what is this loud? Like, have we gone back to 2023? Is that Croc?
I don't know.
This Shinjao is... I love what we're seeing, and I do feel like this is what Loud wanted to do. We have to keep in mind, too, this roster they have right now, it's not meant to scale. It's not meant to build up. It's not a 5-year plan like CL's BKS, you know? Like, this Loud roster was meant to win now. That's why they brought Shinny in. That's why they brought Redbird. And these guys are veterans. They're experienced. And we didn't see it before. We're seeing it now. This was the dream, right? Shinny roaming everywhere, making all these plays. Redbird kind of able to move as well, back people up. Root and Tinones, they can just sit in a lane and scale up to infinity, while Robo soaks pressure and just does Robo things. And we get to see the replay. This gank is very similar to what happened topside. But as you called, the big difference is flash. The flash there was picture perfect. And Scary opting to continue the dive. He was probably just hoping for the 1v1 situation, but Zothby ends up going down as well. Again, okay. Robo?
Well, I mean, this time they brought double the members, and they did manage to get the kill over the line, so fair enough. They'll pick up a tower as well, but look at mid lane. Look at top lane. Both of those outers have fallen in Loud's favor now. They're still up 2 turrets to 1. Gold lead still growing, and everything still in their favor. They're going to pick up the inner mid as well. Are they going to get 4 turrets here? Can Tinones pick this one up? He might have to slide away, but they've already gotten the bonus gold in mid lane.
You know, I'm just going to call that topside inner for them anyways. Right now, if Loud just wants to rotate there with the bodies they've got in the area, they can brute force this, and there's not a lot that Lev can do for it. Lev is trying to answer desperately on the bot side, but it might cost him more.
Dive for Loud. They've got the turret down right now. Slow's coming in from Seo with the deadly flourish. Cody trying to re-engage, gets a bit of damage, doesn't find a charm though, and the turret from Azir will dissuade further as that bot side inner looks like it's still standing. It is gone down, in fact. It was just the kind of the grey indicator. So turrets toppled all over the map, but Loud now up 4 turrets to 2, still 4,000 in the lead, and they've got a Herald to take right after.
Yeah, they just have the better rotation, and it just goes back to that sunk cost fallacy that I feel like Leviathan has fallen into this entire game. And the sunk cost right now is Robo. They just keep going back to this Rumble over and over and over again. And Trajan, normally when you pick a Rumble for your team, you want to play for early team fights on that side. His level 1 ultimate, level 2 ultimate tends to be very, very strong, especially since level 2 tends to coincide with the Liandry's completion. Heck, maybe the second item as well, whether that be the Blighted Jewel or pieces of the Riftmaker. But so far, Loud has been dominating without this Rumble. And if that's the case, I don't think you need to set Robo and this Rumble any further behind. In fact, I think your big problem is actually going to be Tinones and Shinny as this game goes on. Heck, Root in the late game as well. And if you're going to be committing 4 men to make this sort of play, I'd much rather see you collapse onto Shinny instead. Get that bounty off his cold, dead corpse, because 556 gold, that's a weird number. But getting that is going to be so much more impactful. And if you take Shinny off the table, you can go for objectives after. It's not just, oh, we get a kill and then we kind of have to reset, or we desperately try and find a turret push and lose our own turrets in exchange.
As Loud continues this turret push in bot side, that's all the outers now done. Inners on top side, the bot inner now the focus. Out comes the Herald, a demolish proc they can look for if they can get to it. But Leviathan are managing to mount a decent defense right here. Zothby picked some money up in that top side, getting the turret down finally. And Leviathan have managed to pull together to answer what Loud is doing. But that early stage was so dominant for them. The lead so massive that we're going to be rolling into the Atakan, into the Baron phase of the game before too long. And I don't know if Leviathan are going to have the resources to actually challenge Loud properly at that stage.
Fair enough. They've got 2 minutes basically to try and find their own way back in. And again, I'm just looking at the trading, right? It's a turret for turret, top side for bot side. But Loud gets the turret, gets more damage from the turret, sets up the inner push, and they get to fall back on Dragon. So point on a Cloud Drake. And with the rotations we see in this game, I love this game has been tempo oriented and it's always Loud on the front foot. Leviathan trying to catch up. It just feels like it's getting further and further. And we get to see Kate Stars and IE as well in the corner cam there. You know, CL looked very focused on the match. IE looking happier.
Looks like they're having a party, I'll be honest. They're looking jovial in the back room right now, which is not how I would be feeling if I was IE. I'm going to be honest.
Maybe it's a summit effect, right? They're happy, you know, the summit's here.
I guess.
I don't know what happened with Bertle, but I'm assuming it had to be more than just performance, because Bertle struggled in lane, yes, but it was only two games before they sacked him this split.
Yeah, and he had plenty of good moments. Like, he had a couple of, like, critical errors, especially in the cross-conference play we saw from him, but there were lots of good things where he was dealing well in 1v2s, where they were able to leave him alone in the lane, where he was actually performing fine. It wasn't a complete nightmare disaster. It was, like, very variable, but yeah, you're right. I think it feels like there must be something else that's gone on there to have it not work out so quickly, and we'll see if Summit can offer them any more later in the day. For now, Robo about to be on the receiving end of another gank. Goes Golden to cancel the Vite ultimate, but Cody is ready with a point-blank charm. Zothvi's there with the damage, and Robo is going to fall down. This time it looks like Loud have not been able to find an instant objective answer. So finally, some sort of a clean win for Lev.
Okay, yeah, I was actually looking at the top side wondering what else they could get. They've pushed so much that the only thing left on that top side right now are the inhibitor turrets.
They're so far ahead. There's nothing left. There's nothing left for them to take, because they've already taken it. It's what a disaster.
Atakan just spawned, so they couldn't even go for that. They didn't really set up vision. You'll notice that Lev actually have all the vision on this top side of the map, and this feels like the moment where Leviathan can try and make a comeback. They've made a good tempo play. They found Robo without losing anything else. They've got vision on the top side where both the major objectives will be spawning, Atakan and Baron later. Surely this is where they look for the turn. They know this is happening. That ward should be showing Shinny right now.
Scary is in bot side recalling, and Zothvi has a TP, but they don't have ultimates. They committed them to Robo. They're still down, and it looks like Leviathan are just going to seed this Voracious Atacant without any challenge at all, which is going to be massive for Loud to have that extra power going into the fights coming forward. They can go even harder. They can commit, and it doesn't matter if you're lacking necessary engage tools, but just force the issue. Just run at them to the point where they will turn and fight you.
Yeah, and given how strong Shinny still is in the game right now, still up 2,000 gold. Yes, Xinjiao starts to fall off a little bit after the 2-item spike, but at this point, like you said, they can just look for the dives. As long as they're trading equal, it's worth it. If they buy space to take an inhibitor turret, it'd be massive scary. And Shinny facing off here, but Shinny's got help in his back pocket. Won't need it. Tinon's just picking up the buff.
Yep, and Loud will simply step away with their goal achieved. Robo back to the bot lane push, and Leviathan, whose only real option that they have identified so far this game has just been to gank the Rumble. They could maybe look for it again, but now Loud have some bodies in the area, some hench people to keep Robo safe. They're going to commit to this bot side push, look for that last inner turret.
You know what it is, Trajan? So somebody who's playing against the Leviathan team in LTA Fantasy drafted Robo because he's the best performer on Loud and everybody else was struggling. And now Leviathan are just messing with the LTA Fantasy.
Shinny actually going quite deep for this one. Behind the tower, Robo finishing it off. Redbert watching from the sidelines, and Leviathan will give it up as again Cody and Scary are on top side. They're in the side wave. They're on the opposite side of the map to the Loud War Machine that is now pushing at their base.
Cody has TP, but Scary constantly not being on the right side has been a problem. Shinny gets caught.
Looking for it. They're pretty deep under the turret. He's been knocked back already. The turret is surviving a long old time as the turret's doing massive work against the Loud backline as the ult comes through from Seo, but the key targets have already fled to safety. Tinons takes a fair bit of damage as well. Now we have Zothvi and Scary coming in for the flank. Can they get in there in time? Do they even want to? I think they don't want that smoke. They've lost the turret, but they get, you know, they managed to rebuff Loud somewhat.
Yeah, beautiful Sundus from Tinons as well to stop the chase coming through from Cody. And because of that, Zothvi and Scary were kind of isolated and they weren't sure if Root had backed yet. If they walked into 2v4, they have absolutely been punished for it. And after all that, Trajan, after the brute force play that we expect to see from Loud, they only lost Shinny. So the other buff of lives were all still present. They're still really, really strong. More than happy to keep on pressuring. And now Dragon coming up in 20 seconds. This one's going to be Cloud Soul on a Loud team that's already been outpacing Leviathan. It's like giving wings to something that can already fly pretty fast.
Yeah, strapping another set on there. They're going to be flying around the map with no issue, and they've been running rings around Leviathan for most of today. 4 kills to 8, not a massively high kill game, but Loud has been so in control and so strong in that mid game as well that they have been struggling in. Leviathan came into this mid game without really much gold to speak of. They had tools but could only really find them onto Robo, but Loud have looked great playing through that Fed's injet.
Oh man, do we have to send Robo to the soft? Okay, Redbird's there to back him up. Yeah, I fully agree with you, Trajan, and that's, I think, the impressive thing. Now, that's not to say that Leviathan didn't make mistakes of their own. I don't think Loud would be as far ahead as they were, if not for Leviathan's obsession and fixation on Robo in the side lane and Scary constantly not being on the right side of the map. But the main point that we needed to see from both of these teams was that they had a mid game, that they knew they had the macro and the drive, the decision making to actually try and accelerate the game in the mid game. And Loud has been able to do just that. And it's no longer just the Shinny show. It's no longer just Redbird backing up Shinny. Like I said earlier in the laning phase, I'm very impressed that Shinny was ganking for Tinones, and in the mid game, Tinones has reciprocated. A lot of these plays we're seeing, Tinones is with Shinny, making that safety. You know, there's so much disengage with the Xin Zhao and Nazir. Root is joining them as well, and that's why they're able to take so many turrets. They've got so much attack speed that the moment they find a pick, they can just shove.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Leviathan trying to get some vision down in their own jungle. They know the Baron is coming up in 20 seconds, and they don't want to let Loud take it uncontested. They cannot afford another major objective going over to this Loud squad, but they kind of just have to sit and wait for an opportunity. They have been a bit thin on the ground so far in this game. Time running out for them as Cody, having to Spirit Rush to safety, sidesteps away from the Wind Becomes Lightning, could look for a re-engage but doesn't want to go absolutely crazy with it, steps back and has lost that key ultimate.
Just as Baron is up and available as well, Leviathan, they're going to struggle to contest this. Again, they have vision onto it. Scary. What? Where
is my guy going? Where is he off to right now? He's currently on the wrong side of the map. Does get tagged by the Xin Zhao W, but won't be fully committed on, so gets away with it. Zothby using this time to get a push going in bot side, but now the Baron play has begun.
Yeah, and I don't know what's been with Scary. He's been constantly on the wrong side of the map, and this time now up in mid lane without any backup. His team's able to back him up. That is huge, but he needs to find his way to the pit. Robo tanking less than half health before a fight even breaks out.
Got 4 members of Loud trying to rebuff him. Even the jungler, who's not near the smiteable objective, as Cody doesn't have the ultimate, remember, knocked up and taken down. Loud removing the Leviathan mid laner, heals back towards the top river. Zothby, though, is arriving in the base.
He's sitting there. Tinone's able to go and answer this one, and unlike when Robo shows up, Zothby doesn't want to deal with Tinones just yet. He'll deal with Robo, but not with Tinones. Ward's still in the pit. Loud did not sweep this, did not drop a pink, so Scary still has a chance. No flash, though.
Still trying to get closer. Out comes the Jhin ultimate to throw some feelers into the pit. Again, Robo dropping low. A 4th Jhin ultimate could clip him and take him down, but Tinones has slid in from the flank to shuffle him into the range of Root. Lovely ambush from the Loud mid laner, and then they're committing heavily onto the retaining Leviathan members in the area. Zothby goes golden. Pro Delta with a Magnet Storm tries to buy some time, but he can do nothing to stop the advance of Loud.
And Loud go back to the Baron for the 3rd time. 3 is the magic number. Jhin can count to 4, but we ain't getting that far. And now Cody left in base alone. And I love this from Loud as well. Not only are they doing Baron with Shinny, Tinones, and Root, like the 2 carries plus the jungler, but in the meantime, Robo and Redbird were already pushing mid. I was wondering if they're just going to rotate straight from Baron into a mid lane push while multiple members of Leviathan was dead. They don't end up doing that, but they do make sure that Leviathan can't push the waves out early. They can't cut away that buff, and Loud will get to respawn and push in on their own terms. We get to see a replay of this fight, and while everybody was fixated on the Baron, Tinones is coming from the top lane, where he TP'd to deal with Zothby, and right here, as that shot was coming out, they find Sale, and there's just no backup, right? Pro Delta and Scary, they were looking for the steal. They weren't looking to peel for an AD carry at that point.
Yeah, they just don't have the bodies in the area. They've got their own plans here, and Seo trying to do what he can with this Jhin pick, but just has had no angle into this game. Has had nothing useful to do all day. And Tinones showing up at the right spot, you can see, having a great time in this game. And we love to see Loud having fun again, to be honest. There was an interview that came out with Coach Cephas for Loud that I think that the headline quote was, "Loud doesn't sound like Loud right now." And that's just sad. That's just a sad headline. That's not the kind of vibes we want here.
Yeah, I mean, going from 4 straight wins to where they are now has been tough. Robo going golden to mess with Scary. And look at Leviathan. They didn't even try and back him up. Like, that could have been a 4v2. Tinones was still in rotation, but Leviathan, they seem crushed and crumbled right now. The mental just not there.
scary. When he has an idea, there is no choice of ever pulling back on it. He just commits and sends it and just goes for it, even as it becomes bad. A nice engaged Pyro Delta catches 3 members, but the damage from Leviathan just isn't there at this point. They don't have the money. They don't have the resources. They didn't have the plan in place today, unlike Loud. Great comeback game for them. 4th game of the split. They're going to pick up their first win against Leviathan, and Shinny, my man, is walking away 9-0-4. What a comeback for him.
Wasn't Shinny like one of the most picked junglers in week 1 for LTA Fantasy? I hope people still stayed on that train because
yeah, I mean there were a lot of kind of mid-range expense junglers, but Shinny, I think people just they see him, they know the name, they had faith in what he could do and come back and do for this Loud roster. That first week was absolutely disastrous, I'll be honest, for the whole team, but that game, that 4th game, is going to drag that average up for the fantasy points. So anyone who stayed invested is going to get some big payouts today.
Yeah, I got a hold, right? That's how it works with bad stocks. Yeah, and for Loud, like you're saying, Trajan, look at this team right now, right? Like they are veterans. This is a veteran team, and it does feel like Loud had such a massive drop-off from the days where they had these sort of 4 straight titles, and even their last title was a little bit shaky. And then after that, you know, we had the split where, well, Seo's already left, and you had Ripper for the last split, and then you had Croc trying to win his last split before he left, which is absolutely got dumpstered. You had Tinon struggling with the AD carry mid meta that he's never excelled at. It just was like problem after problem after problem for this Loud roster, and this game, it doesn't mean one game doesn't mean they fixed all their problems, Trajan. But it's a really, really good start. And more than anything else, for this Loud roster that has always run partially on vibes, when they're doing well, they do really, really well. This is probably the best situation they could hope for. This game is probably the best shot of revitalization that they're going to get in this round robin.
Yeah, it gives a vote of confidence to Shinny in that jungle role, that the decisions he makes are good ones, that the team can follow up on his plays, and they'll look good doing it. That is what worked best for Fluxu in the last split we saw for Shinny, when everyone was getting in line behind Shinny and following up on his ideas, and for a long time that worked very well for that roster. Loud, they've got to get in line behind Shinny, man, because you cannot leave this guy out to dry. He will still go for it regardless if you're there, so let's all just get on board, alright? And that is the kind of game you can have when you're on board. So wonderful game for Loud, a great way for them to right the ship, as it was getting a little bit disastrous. For now though, we are going to go to a short break. We'll be back with game number 2 in just a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. welcome back everybody to the LTA South. It is time for game number 2. Now we just saw another problem, another failure, another disaster for the LLA. Leviathan in the mud. Again, they are now 2-2 and their first great week has come crashing down around their ears. Now, it's time for the other reps. It's time for the last bastion so far in week 2. It's time for Isurus Estral to see if they can show us something. Now, they are against VKS and RMC. Yeah. When we look at the scores, when we look at the placements, when we look at the seedings of all these teams, they do tell a pretty weird story coming into this match.
Yeah, so let's be a bit specific about this. We're talking about the 0-3 team versus the 3-0 team. And currently the only 3-0 team versus the only 0-3 team. We are looking at the first seed of the first split against the last seed of the first split. Now, Trajan, those two statements seem like they should go hand in hand, but they're actually somewhat contradictory because Kate is 3-0, but they were the last seed's last split. Isurus Estral was our best performing seed and first seed coming off the LTA South, and yet they are now 0-3, and hence our massive confusion over what happened to the LATAM teams.
It's a weird one, man. It's a very, very weird one. Isurus Estral just look like they have come apart at the seams in such a massive way because they weren't doing anything mind-blowing in Split 1. They weren't drafting strange things. They weren't playing in a weird way. They were playing like, you know, Ambessa, Sejuani, Ari. Like, wow, amazing. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here at Isurus Estral. They never have been, but they were just the best put together team. And they looked the best in the late game. They looked like they had the most experience. They could play the game out in the most reasonable, effective way. And they won, and they looked like the best team doing it. And now they've come into here, they can't do any of that. They can't do any of it anymore. They're still picking Sejuani and Ari and Ambessa, but they're just not winning anymore. They are also in the mud, and here comes the tier list right now. What I think we should start doing is requesting that Rose show our Split 1 tier list, because it might be a bit more accurate at this point.
True, it really does feel like all the expectations we had in Split 1 are actually coming through in Split 2. Trajan, they don't get it. We are prophets. We were just seeing too far ahead. That's all it was, you know, on the Gringos Silverados podcast. But we've talked about Isurus Estral, and we cannot get away without mentioning the big change they've made here in week 2. They've replaced their top laner. Berto out, Summit in. We referenced it earlier. Summit. Oh, nice. I love that picture of him with the sunglasses. Nice, Rose. Yeah, and he was sort of the top lane GOAT of the LA last year. All right, I shouldn't call him a GOAT if it was only last year. But in 2024, he dominated top lane. He was a huge reason of why R7 made it to Worlds, and he was just kind of crushing all the other top laners. Now, the question is, he's had a bit of time off. He actually went into retirement, and we are pulling him out of a retirement home here. Can he do the same now? Yesterday, certainly wasn't the case. On Rumble, he went 1-6-1 against Hidan. Now, was it all on him? Not necessarily. The team was struggling as a whole. But that's certainly not the best start that you want to see when you brought in a top laner to kind of fix problems. And today, against Bull, against a carry player that VKS has learned to play around, I am a little bit concerned about what might happen to Summit there.
Yeah, because a lot of people expected to see more from Summit. I have been an outspoken non-believer in Summit as a solution for a team, but even I expected him to look a little better in the laning phase. You know, that's kind of the hallmark. That's the Summit special, is overperformance in the laning phase, and we didn't even see that against Hidan. As you say, one of our lower ranked, less experienced, less successful top laners in the league, I think it's fair to say. So against Bowl, who is in a similar position, we need to see a little bit more from this guy. We need to get the energy of the sunglasses background and the big smile. We need to see that Summit here today, not the Deadeye Summit, okay? We need actually some action from that top side. Maybe just to give Isurus Estral a bit of breathing room, a bit of room to plan, a bit of room to do something elsewhere on the map, because for me, their bot lane was so resilient in the 2v2 against our best duos. They were not falling behind. They weren't doing anything exceptional. They weren't massively outperforming the 2v2s, but they weren't falling behind, and they were doing their jobs later. We're not even seeing that on the other side of the map anymore. So the whole formula has fallen apart.
Yeah, and you look who they're up against. Cade Stars currently sat at 3-0. And it's a little bit hard to plan against them. This isn't the Cade Stars from last year where it felt like they had immaculate macro, great early game plans, where we were seeing the Samus and Pro Delta at the time just roaming around, making action happen all right from the get-go. No, instead, this is the Vivo Cade Stars, with an emphasis on the stars, because it has been individuals, heroes kind of stepping up. And on week one, day one, it was Kissei stepping up massive carrying games on day 2. Was Morteus showing up with a Kai'Sa, just diving people left and right. Yesei Desamas leading the charge. Well, according to the script today, it should be either Trimby or Bull.
Yeah,
and if it's Bull against
due.
Summit, that could be a thing. And Bull as well, I really love the way K-Stars have enabled Bull to play his comfort champions. He's been on Aatrox, Gwen, Jax. What do they have in common? Carries, Trajan. Damage carries. And once again, are they going to get their hands on Gwen right from the get-go?
Looks like that's going to be the priority here. We'll see if the draft comes back again. They might do, but we'll yet to find out where from the arena in Sao Paulo. They might have to remake that one very quickly. From what we saw from the bans as well, which I imagine will probably stay the same, was things like Vi and Callista being banned away by VKS as well. So Jose Diodo has been just playing like Vi's, Sichuani's. He's been playing the quintessential jungler's jungle picks to enable your lanes, right? This is what he's been doing, and this is I don't want us to pigeonhole Jose Diodo into this kind of format as well, because he is a very proficient carry jungler. To be honest, he could be much more of an Aegis kind of character in this league than I think we're seeing right now.
100%. Give me his patented Lee Sin. Give me his View. Give me his Wukong. If you want something that can still help your team while being a carry, Wukong is that champion. So I fully agree with you, Trajan. I would like to see Jose Diodo on a sort of champion where he can have his own impact as well. The problem is, you look at this team around him, right? You've got Summit, you've got Miryu, both players who are massive carries in their own right. And if you give Jose Diodo a carry as well, then you start worrying, okay, well, do we have too many carries in the team? Because obviously AD carry, granted, Snaker feels like a guy who could probably play more Ashe and Jhin, who could stand to do a little bit more of that.
Sure.
But he's been playing Kai'Sa, which is another sort of, I need resources, I need a carry champion. And because of that, I do feel like Jose Diodo has been pigeonholed into certain roles that doesn't get to showcase his full skill. And going into this draft, Trajan, I'm kind of with you. Just put Snaker on Ashe, on Jhin, and give Jose Diodo a carry, and let this top side pop off.
Yeah, just give us like an Ashe Rakan or an Ashe Braum bot lane, and then just let them do what they do in the 2v2, let them deal with it, and let's see what we can do elsewhere, you know? Let's see what we can do, because this is... So against this VKS roster, the thing that I'm waiting to see from this VKS side is, as you've mentioned, the stars are there, the talent is there, and they have now been unlocked and unleashed compared to Split 1. But I'm yet to see some clear, the kind of devastating overrunning, you know, game plans that we saw from them before in the Smiley iteration. You know, we don't necessarily see the same early game pace that we did before, and I feel like they can still play with it, you know, especially when their players are unlocked and playing well. I'm surprised that we're seeing a lot more of a measured pace of the game from them when I don't think it's necessary. I don't think, even when they're ahead, it feels like they're not pushing their leads in the same way that they could, beyond like individuals deciding, I'm going to go and outplay this guy right now. So that's what I want to see a little bit more of from VKS, especially against an IE that is struggling. I think this is a chance for us to see them build that momentum a little bit more, because I've seen, and I'm almost certainly slightly biased towards teams like Furia because I've been pulling for them for years now, but I feel like I see a more cohesive kind of structure beneath that than I see with VKS just yet. So this is a chance for us to see that again. And obviously that VKS match against Furia will come up next week, and that will be fascinating to watch. We'll see how they do, because even if VKS lose right here, they'll then be 3-1, and Furia could very well be 3-1 by the end of today. They're playing against Fluxy later on.
Sure. Yeah, and I feel like part of that, Trajan, it might not be a choice from the side of VKS. As much as we talk about their star power, it's not been so much in the laning phase as it has been in the mid game, where they really explode and we start seeing the kills roll through. In fact, the kill count for VKS can be a bit on the lower side. I feel like LTA South as a whole has actually slowed down in the laning phase, maybe because we don't see as many lane swaps, we're not seeing as many dives or as many kills come through. And we have to remember that during the explosive VKS early game phase, it was coming a lot from their bot lane. And that was Pro Delta and Smalley, who were, at the time, potentially, arguably, our best bot lane during the regular season. They beat Titan Curry in the regular season as well, right? And I don't think we have a bot lane showcasing that level of dominance right now. Not even Titan Curry are crushing their lane quite that hard. Now, against Snaker Ackerman, this should be the lane to do it. If any lane. Yeah. They are the weakest laning duo right now in the LTA South, so maybe Morteus and Trimby can showcase that. But that's not why you brought Trimby in. It wasn't for the laning. It was for sort of the mid-game macro and decision-making. And to give credit to Trimby, while week 1 was a little bit sus, and split 1 was very, very sus, this week 2, at least yesterday, did look good for Trimby. And I think if the K-Stars, if that's their winning condition, then that's fine. You don't have to smash the early game. Show me a beautiful mid-game.
Yeah, you know, this is very clearly a project in progress, and we're seeing that progress already. Split 1, we didn't get enough time to see anything, really, about anyone. And a lot of the information that we had time to glean from Split 1 has proven to be completely wrong in Split 2, so it wasn't even helpful, the stuff that we did see, you know? We're kind of just, at this point, we're just throwing out a lot of what we got from Split 1, because it just hasn't held up. LLA now in the bin. We have seen Pain rocket back up to the top and looking like they used to look in 2024 after that new mid laner, you know? It's just that there's so much coming through that is in contravention, not even to talk about the roster moves from teams like from Red as well. So we have had it confirmed, thank you by Rose, that it is a player hardware issue on the stage. So I imagine they'll be doing some quick swaps of PCs or monitors to get that one sorted before too long. While we're waiting for that to resolve, the third match, we've mentioned the Furia Fuxi match a couple times. Right. The third match of the day is Red Pain, right?
Yep.
And that is kind of the old kind of classic match before Loud stormed into the scene and blew everyone off their feet. So from what we've seen from Red yesterday, taking the win in that match into Pain now, who had that loss versus Furia. RMC, what is your expectations going into that third game while we're waiting for game 2 to actually begin? Like, how are you feeling as a Pain fan going into that one, considering they got their first loss and that Red is managing to still put some wins together?
I was very conflicted yesterday watching that Furia versus Pain game, Trajan. Because much like you, I have been cheering on this Furia roster for a while, right? And they've got Thinkard as a coach, you know, from North America, coach of the successful NRG roster. Of course, I want to cheer for my fellow North American. But I'm also Pain's actually, so it really hurts to see them lose, and the way they lost as well. Pain looked like Loud the way they lost that game. They were just keeling over doing nothing. But yeah, Furia have been performing phenomenally, and I think the teams who have put a greater emphasis on coaching, right, like Furia, VKS, they're the two who are really popping off in this split 2, and I love to see that, because I do think that Brazil and South America as a whole has been struggling with infrastructure for a while. We have the hands down here, unquestionably, right? When Jose Deodo went to North America, he performed well. When Seos is in North America right now, he's doing fine. In fact, Lion Gaming is doing pretty solid in terms of hands. So it's always been more of a coaching difference coming through, infrastructure difference, and I think Furia and VKS are really showing us the way. Now, we are back in the draft. Looks like that got fixed. The bans are still the same. You know, Kalista, Misfortune, Varus, Love 80 Carry Focus, Vi, thankfully being taken away for both these junglers. I don't like Vi. But the Gwen being open and given to Bull right away, Trajan, my concerns for that, still valid.
It's quite similar bans to game 1, but we've had the Jace added in instead of... I forget what the other AD carry was, but it's an AD carry swap for a Jace ban, and we still had Sejuani, the Varus MF removed. Corki picked up here by Isra Estral, of course, flexible between mid lane and bot lane still, and the Rumble for Summit. Now, is this, given that we left Gwen open, that we've taken this one, how do you feel about Summit's matchup right here? Because we said we want to see more from him. With the Rumble into the Gwen, is this a situation where we can see more?
I think it's slightly Rumble favor, but largely skill matchup in terms of Gwen versus Rumble in terms of laning. It's more about what they bring as the game goes on. Rumble is a very strong team fighter, but Gwen just outscales, right? And her team fighting is not bad with the needle work as long as that's up to. So I do much more favor the Gwen, and I'm also a little bit concerned because we saw Summit's Rumble yesterday, or we didn't see him because he spent half the game dead, 1-6-1. Like, it's a really tough thing to see. We're seeing now the Xin Zhao being picked up. Now that's two champions, Gwen and Xin Zhao, who both can play really well around the equalizer individually. And I think for K-Stars, when I see those two champions, I kind of want to see champions that will skirmish instead of like a front to back with Xin Zhao as a tank, because yeah, like with the Azir, you can kind of get out of the equalizer and you really negate the early picks we're already seeing from IE.
Yeah, the Azir locked in for Kissy in the mid lane. So another Xin Azir mid lane jungle combination, this time with the Gwen for their side. We'll see what the answer for IE is going to be. If we're going to leave the bot lanes entirely to second rotation as we did before, which does seem like it's going to be the case, and with this Skarner presumably getting locked in, it does seem like Jose Deodo is still on that enabling tank frontline utility beat that has been his remit so far in Split 2.
Yeah, and I don't hate it. I do think Skarner is a good pickup to pair with the likes of the Rumble. You can forcibly drag people onto the red carpet and keep them there for a while, so I don't hate the pickup. But we already discussed our thoughts on Jose Deodo and giving him a carry, and a little bit sad, especially when they did hover the other one for a second. Now we are into the second ban phase. More AD carry bans being thrown against Morteus, and for both these teams, well, For the side of IE, the Corki is a flex. It could go bot, it could go mid, but both teams do still need supports. So I'm curious if we do see any support bans coming through. So far, none whatsoever.
Yeah, now, we have the Talia banned away. It was hovered by Kissy before, banned away. The Ezreal and the Ashe taken away by Snaker. So the Jhin still available. The Corki, of course, flexible to be put into Snaker's hands if they want to offer from Miryu. We've seen the Yone come out a couple of times and has still been kept around. So there's plenty of options for these ways to go. And I'm wondering... Oh, they only banned away. So I guess one of those last options removed right here. So we're going to have an AP top and now... presumably still an AP mid, as Yone is kind of the AD mid option right now that's commonly seen in pro play. And I'm hoping that we're not just going to slam an Ahri in there again, but for Miryu, we haven't seen a huge amount of diversity yet from him. You know, there's not a huge amount of depth. It's kind of been the usual answers. But I have summoned an Akali pick by mentioning Ahri. W, let's see it, Miryu, because we do need to see a bit more out of Miryu, right? He was very proficient in Split 1, but he's had a very quiet Split 2. I mean, as of the rest of them. But it was another particularly kind of this Miryu and Cody together were running the league and running the mid lane. And now we have a chance to see a little bit more there.
Yeah, and I do like the Akali pickup as well. Just we talk so much about hate stars and how their comp. I'd like to see champions that can kind of do their own thing, split up, skirmish rather than clump up and team fight. Akali's a great answer to that. If you split up, you're isolated. Akali usually wins those assassinations against squishies. She does great into Gwen as well, but Kai'Sa for Morteus, that's a ballsy choice. Trying to play Kai'Sa into Skarner, into Akali. You're literally saying, I can outhand you. Like, I will just play better and dodge everything, which, that's a tall ask.
Yeah, it is a bold position. It is a bet on oneself, which I can always get behind. The Kai'Sa Rakan option, Trimby, of course, a classic Rakan aficionado, gives him plenty of options to play around the map. That is what we want to see from this guy. So we'll see what Ackerman's answer is going to be. We know that it's going to be the Corki down on that bot side for Snaker, so both quite burst heavy, to be honest, quite short range. Opts for the Nautilus instead of the potentially hovered Pike, so Ackerman going to go for a fairly standard pick, but decent into the Rakan. The hook, of course, does deal pretty well, and the ultimate, even if Kai'Sa wants to reposition 7,000 times, the Nautilus ultimate will follow her regardless.
Yep, the depth charge will hit, and if anything, if you reposition it correctly, you might drag your team into it, right? If you're going to dodge around and pull it into your team. I do like the Nautilus pickup. I think it's good setup for Rumble as well, something that we didn't touch too much on. The Skarner is good setup for Rumble. The Nautilus is guaranteed setup for the Skarner, and then subsequently the Rumble. So I do like the pickup from IE. I think the composition is a little bit more well balanced. It's more rounded. You've got the Akali to deal with stragglers. Corki can actually handle 1v1s decently. He's got a lot of burst built into his kit. But the front to back fighting is really, really solid for Istris Astral as well. So a bit of a jack of all trades style composition. I'm looking at Miryu specifically on this Akali to make or break it, because front to back compositions are easy to play around, and the comp that VKS has deals very well with that. So it needs to be on Miryu to look for the punishes and make sure that Kate Stars don't feel comfortable just splitting up and dodging everything.
Yes, we'll see if we can enable that chance for them, because we really need to see more from IE, as we've said. I want to see more, because I was very excited that we had this roster that had come that was looking better than I expected, that we had players like Jose Dioda with the history, with the heritage that they have, coming into the league and performing well. That can only be good for us to add these strong players into the mix and help us all grow together. You know, he wanted the scrims to be more professionalized. Someone should probably ask him if they've gotten better, and if that's now changed, because certainly the rest of IE trajectory has changed. Maybe everyone took that notice and you know, locked in the scrim and has now managed to improve over the offseason. Maybe that helped. Who knows?
I blame the Korean bootcamp that IE went for. I feel like they got, like, Korea plays a completely different meta from LTA South, you know, and maybe IE got a little bit too much in their own heads, getting used to playing against Koreans and not against LTA South players. But Kate Stars, they I wouldn't say they're the quintessential LTA South team, but certainly the way they play is a lot more LTA South than it is. It's a lot more micro than macro, I feel like, these first couple of days. Yeah.
And to be honest, yeah, it's surprising that they're in that position. Perhaps that the rebuild that they went through just kind of facilitated, right, let's go back to what works for us as individuals. Let's focus on enabling our own strengths, and then they're going to put the plan together, put the pieces together into a larger vision as we go. And they are still 3-0. I feel like I don't want us to bash them too much. I'm definitely guilty of that myself sometimes, to downplay VKS, but they are 3-0, and while they've not been necessarily strong in the ways we've seen in the past from them, they are still very strong, and they aren't throwing games away. They're not looking completely ridiculous at any point, as we do have an invade from Isrus Estral. Going to walk into Trimby, knocked up his Ackerman, has to pop the shield, so doesn't have the hook at level 1 right now, as Isrus Estral are fleeing back to their own side.
But he does preserve the flash, and I think that's the more critical thing right now in this bot lane. If he burnt that early, maybe we see Desamas go for a cheeky level 2, because as little as we've seen level 2 ganks happen, I feel like for the last 2 years, Xinjiao is still one of those champions who can make it work rather efficiently.
Yeah, it's certainly an option for him right now, as Miryu going in for some trades onto Kissy in that mid lane. The Akali, of course, melee into ranged matchup, so a little tough to maneuver around the Sand Soldiers, but good use of the Shroud can give you pathways in. Kissy throws the thumbs up to mark the trades as they continue, and this is what we expect to see generally from Snaker and Ackerman in bot lane as well. They have been, as we've said in the past, very resilient in the 2v2, not necessarily dominant, not necessarily the ones smashing and getting 2v2 kills, but they're generally trusted to do their jobs when needed.
Yeah, just kind of hold the line, and that was what we saw a lot in Split 1 from IE. Like you said, they weren't particularly spectacular in any one way. It was more just that they played very efficient League of Legends. They played for late game. They knew their strengths and would just play for it. In the mid lane, this was the one lane for IE in Split 1 that felt like it would pop off in the laning phase, and it was off the hands that Miryu had with the help of Jose Diodo. I love that Miryu is already starting to win those trades in the melee to ranged matchup, because as an Akali, it's really, really tough. It does get a lot easier at 6, and if you're able to win these trades early, even better if you can keep Kissy in lane low on health at 6, that could just be an insta-kill from this Akali.
Yeah, you want to keep Kissy on the back foot, always with the threat of that perfect execution round the corner. As we do head towards level 6 as we go. The junglers still have not really been spotted so far, just doing fairly standard clears, both going top to bottom right now. So potentially Bowl and Summit could be on the receiving end right here. The top lane is often found on the receiving end of those early ganks. Bowl currently pushed up on the Gwen, so a little advantage to the Summit in terms of safety. As a hook in from Ackerman onto Morteus though, but a lovely knock up from Trimby. Snaker has the Valkyrie to safety. Trimby as well not looking so healthy, and both sides break apart.
And that's what I feel like we see a lot with these engaged supports. It's like whoever engages first in the early game ends up losing the trade, because the interruption often benefits you better, being able to kind of stop the rest of the engagement coming through. Later on that changes. Later on it's whoever pulls the trigger first tends to win that. But at least in the laning phase, Morteus and Trimby already winning out. Miryu taking the bad end of a trade. The back and forth is nutty. I am expecting them to go for that recall around the level 4, level 5 mark anyway, so Miryu probably just willing to trade as much as he can onto Kissy, who has already used his TP, and that damage will stick.
Yeah, and this is Kissy trying to catch up CS-wise to Miryu, who had already forced the TP, crashed that wave in with the helpfulness of Jose in the back pocket, meaning that Kissy cannot, commit to try and go for a kill at that stage. And now he can continue to pick up the wave, nice and comfortable, has a marginally better buy, I will wager, and has managed this Akali Azir lane very well to start off, as we have a little lane swap coming in right here as well. Summit being swapped down into the bot side with Corki heading up top and Ackerman on the roam. Now, does Kissy know what's going on here? Gets hooked up, can't get the slide right through. This is not the best Ian. The Shuriken comes down. First blood for the Akali.
Great rotation from IE. Not only do they swap their bot lane up to the top lane, they get Summit down into the bot side as well, but the way they did it, a lot of times we just see the support and AD carry just kind of walk out into that lane, whereas Ackerman actually taking a dip into the mid lane as well, and that one paid off huge. Miryu getting first blood is going to be massive, and you can tell Kissy was completely not expecting this. Like, they expected the lane swaps, that was already happening. He was not expecting Ackerman to just come out of bush. He had no wards, he was shading to the wrong side. It was just that easy for Miryu to pick up first blood.
Beautiful stuff from Isrus Estral, getting that Akali rolling, accelerating what was already looking like a very well-managed lane, as now Snaker and Ackerman have returned to this top side to complete the lane swap right there. They're hooking onto Trimby though, but do they know Desamas is round the corner? Sidesteps the wind, become lightning, critical for Ackerman as Morteus over the wall, doesn't want to flash to commit to this one, as Shinny is now returning to the scene of the crime here for Isrus Estral. They will break apart. So again, even into the 2 versus 3, Isrus Estral, they managed to walk away pretty happy with it.
Yeah, the wards though coming from Isrus Estral pretty clutch. They defend that control ward, and that ward that they put over the ledge right there gave them vision, and that's why I think K-Stars really wisely backed off. They were going to lose that trade with the way it was going. Trimby dancing around Ackerman right now, actually able to get rid of the control ward, clear that away, but it still leaves K-Stars on the short end of the stick. Jose Deodo going to be able to start this one up without too much interruption. Desam is already walking away, looking for Dragon instead.
Snaker gonna head down to offer some DPS to speed this one up, as Morteus trying to hold that wave, freezing it nicely for himself in that top side. We want to see if we can get more out of this Kai'Sa. We saw some amazing Kai'Sa performances from Morteus so far in split number 2. A real glow up from split 1 for this kind of heir apparent AD carry for K-Stars that has now hit the scene. Summit gonna be able to clear out the ward from Desama. Still level 5 is the Xin Zhao as well, with level 6 for the Rumble, so gonna be able to drop the ultimate defensively if need be, or could potentially try and catch ball out here if he gets a chance.
Yeah, and the boots that Summit picked up, the movement speed mismatch in this bot lane has actually been massive. It's allowed him to shove Bull in fairly comfortably and be able to dodge out a lot of Bull's counterattacks, and because of that, Desamas walked away from those grubs. We're not seeing the grub for Trajan trade that we often do see on the first set of grubs. Desamas wasn't able to go there, walked into Summit, realized he was there, and did not feel comfortable. So, IE really coming out ahead, not just in terms of getting the early rotation, not just in terms of getting first blood, but even around the objectives.
As we see again, Miryu threatening with the Shuriken. Summit might be able to commit to this one, actually. Gets the Hallowed Mist down. Of course, both the ultimates available, but is winning out the trades with this Rumble pick. He's going to be basically even on CS as Bull picks up these extra minions in the bot side. But again, it's far from domination. You know, he's winning trades at this point in, as you'd said, a slightly Rumble favored matchup. But this is not what Bull is designed to be doing. It's not designed to be solo killing multiple times in the lane. This is a late game team fight carry element, and that's what he has been excelling in so far in this split.
Yeah, so Bull going to be okay with how things have gone so far. Interesting choice from Summit to actually TP into this top lane. I don't know if it's going to necessarily benefit him. He had a TP advantage over Bull, and he was chunking Bull away. But now opting to go up there, he's not going to get an easy shove or anything. Like, Bull's going to get there in time to catch the wave. So I don't know about how I feel burning that teleport there. It's not going to set him behind. And I just hope that we do see Jose Deodo try and capitalize on that at some point. Not right now, though, because Dragon is up, and IE are looking at it.
Clearing out the vision pretty efficiently right there. They've got Jose Deodo coming around the corner, who is level 6 himself as well, so they do have CC options to commit to someone who steps too close. They are going to stand it up, but again, Desamas is now onto topside, and Summit, remember, TP'd into this lane. If he goes down now, he does not have a quick way to return.
Yeah, Bull CP will come up a lot sooner, if anything. But for now, they are locked in combat on this top side. K-Stars, though, where is Desamas is the million-dollar question. Vision has been toggled out.
He is Alco Gaming. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
I mean, I like the idea.
Yeah. I mean, there was time when Summit was almost dragged too far forward, right? And maybe now is the time as he's gotten into that brush. Out he comes from the bush is Desamas. Now the lovely equalizer actually completely dissuades them from continuing the play. Summit stepping back forward, maybe wanted to look for a kill, gets exhausted, gets queued, and prodded by the spear. Desamas steps back in to take the final credit.
Speaking of stepping back in, I gotta blame a large chunk of that on Summit. Summit was home free. The equalizer was great.
Yeah.
And then he got a little bit too greedy. 2v1 situation, tried to step back in, ends up going down. Thankfully for him, the kill doesn't go to Bull. It goes to Desamas. And while we did see Shinny put on a masterclass on a snowballed Xin Zhao, this game has gone a lot slower already. And right here, Summit was out. The equalizer meant that, hey, they weren't going to be able to redive, but he wanted more. He stepped out completely from turret range, and you got to remember, Bull, once again, not running the flash, right? He's running the exhaust, similar to what we saw last game as well, means that if you step out that far, it's going to take you a lot longer to get back to safety. The flash was already burned, so Summit giving away that one for free, I'm going to be honest, I don't think it makes that big a difference in the short term.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and give that one the old reload, I imagine. Such is the unfortunate nature of not having a clean feed. We do just pull it directly from the Portuguese-Brazilian broadcast. So we'll have that one back as soon as possible. Never fear. But for now, so this, again, it has been not like a rip-roaring 100 miles an hour start from VKS. They've managed to just succeed on this top play, but they only succeeded because Summit kind of gave it to them. They actually failed on the top lane, and then Summit got kind of drawn back in by how they almost failed it to then die, right? As I'm not going to necessarily give VKS full credit for this one. Again, decent idea, takes a while to execute. It doesn't end up actually even working out without the misplay from the top opponent right there. So again, we're not seeing a huge amount of positives for me in this early game just yet, and Isra Astral are walking away with a small lead, and they still have this Akali that is now growing in the mid lane. They've not been able to snowball it more than that first kill, but they are going to have that threat going on later.
And I think that's what we expected pretty much from VKS. We already said they're not an early game, like immaculate macro team right now. They're more about the mid game. What does concern me though is the fact that while all this is happening, IE gets all the objectives. Oh, they're looking for Summit.
Now this looks a little better. This looks a little more no downside. Bowl is going to take that kill. Lovely rotation through from Trimby, and Summit again just caught where he's not supposed to be. Now 0 and 2. I'm going to be honest, RMC, I'm seeing a lot of rumbles dying on my screen in Split 2 in the LTA South. Whether they win or lose does not seem to be that relevant, but they are dying a lot.
You know what? The LTA South is just trying to combat forest fires. That's all it is, you know? They're taking out the big equalizers, the flamethrowers.
Make a statement, of just destroying flamethrowers at all times. You know, there is the big Amazonian rainforest reconservation going on in Brazil right now. This is all symbolism, guys. This is all symbolism, as Summit is going to fall down. And that has actually just eliminated the small lead that I was praising IE for having, as Bowl now has got that 300 for himself.
Yeah, but what still concerns me is the fact that IE is getting all the objectives, right? They got both sets of grubs. That happened while we were trying to fix the stream there. They also got the first dragon, and Katestar's, the Samus specifically, has not even looked at these objectives. So, sure, that bot side, to me, I consider more of a trait than a no downside play, because that's Katestar's trying to answer. But critically, the Samus wasn't a part of that. That was Trimby roaming down onto Bo to make that happen, and I need to see a little bit more from the Samus here.
Ooh, Miryu might have to burn the flash. Does not sit greedy with it. Kissy did not have to use anything himself as well. Fair enough for Miryu. Wants to get out of the sticky situation that he found himself in right there. So the Akali slightly neutered for the next time they have a potential play. A little bit less mobility to offer. Mid lane wave comes crashing in, but IE do have the feat of objectives. As you'd mentioned, they managed to get those double grubs and the crab. Still, and the dragon, I should say. Still waiting on the turret and the third kill right now. VKS with one left to pick up in that regard.
And Kissy not blowing Emperor's Divide will mean it will be up for that second dragon as it spawns a Hextech Drake. Does he know Miryu's in there? He doesn't. Miryu gets the recall. Topside as well. Bo has teleport, so I would want to see Katestars really contest for this dragon. Bring down the extra body if you can. 5v4 would be ideal, even if it does mean losing some more plates up top. The only issue though is that Topside has already taken plate damage, and you don't want to give over first turret. Plates are fine. The feats, not so much.
Summit is still able to be very effective in this 1v1, despite not having the first item completed. A Riftmaker and a Null Magic Mantle for Bowl cannot save these trades, as the Rumble's still very, very deadly. Out comes the second Dragon Hextech this time around. It's Astral first on the scene with a great set of vision lines around it, and they're actually engaging for the fight straight away onto the Samus and Trimby. They get the stun, forces the flash as well to avoid the ultimate. Miryu looking to get aggressive on bot side. Kissy slides away to safety. Flashless or no, he is still exerting the pressure.
Impale taken away from Jose Deodo though, and that's a critical one if a fight were to break out. But Katestars, they look so leery of the engage. The Samus being low is not helping matters. It's got to be Trimby looking for the engage, but instead now Trimby's being hunted by Miryu. TP from Kissy into this ball lane. It's going to be too late.
Yeah, the lovely option by Miryu there, holding out 3 members basically of VKS in that bot side, just holding the line down there. Snaker and Ackerman heading back to mid lane, getting the wave pushed in, so Morteus has to stick around to pick that one up, and there's just no bodies free for Katestars to come and contest it. So second dragon now for Isra Astral is another Cloud Rift for us right now in this second game. And they are looking fairly comfortable, of course. The gold's still basically even. VKS with decent, I say decent, with excellent scaling options with a Gren, Azir, and Kai'Sa, but not a massive lead to play through just yet.
Okay, so Trajan, you know how like all of us here on the LTA South broadcast have never did LCL? Yeah. But at what point do you start getting worried for Katestars in this situation? Kissy is about to get dove. He has the Emperor's Divide, but against the Nautilus and Skarner, they can tank for a decent amount of time.
It's got the flash, but again, the Nautilus ultimate does not care. Jose skates right past him, just misses him. while he's knocked up by Nautilus ultimate, that's a bit of a goof by Jose, as Snaker has to flash and W, but Trimby follows him. A barrier cannot keep him alive. Morteus picks up the kill, and now Summit trying to crash in on top side. VKS, kind of style on his Rosestral there.
A symphony of slip-ups. Yes, Kissy, Jose Nuno missing Kissy. That one should go in a compilation. But even in the mid lane, both Trimby and Morteus actually flashed forward to secure that kill onto Snaker. Snaker's barrier was spot on, and the timing was perfect bait. Here is where Morteus starts to shine on the Kai'Sa. And we had concerns about Kai'Sa in the team fight, but in the isolated fights, this Corki is so vulnerable. Beautiful barrier. And the flash forward from Morteus to have to secure that one does burn critical summoners as another objective spawns. And it just feels like IE as a whole have a lock on this. This time it's Summit roaming down. K-Stars do want to contest this. They are looking to contest it, but they are missing critical summoners and critical ultimates. Emperor's Divide is not up and available.
Diodo tanking it very far out of the pit. It's going to let the reset come through. The stun into the wall comes down, and then the ultimate. This is looking a lot better onto the Samus. Pops the Crescent Guard. It's going to get him to safety. Miryu dives it off the flank and takes that kill. No questions asked. Ults over the wall, now threatening Kissy and Trimby. Bowl looking to see what he can do. The rest of IE, though, piling in through the jungle. And VKS just have to get out of there.
Yeah, and without the critical ultimates, it's so hard for them to play. The IE's willingness to engage, this is something that we've kind of been missing. We did see glimmers of this yesterday from Istur Zestral. They actually had a pretty good early game into the mid game, and then they threw it all at Atakan, which is coming up in 3 minutes. Just saying. So this is good for IE, but it is something we've seen from them before. I am still getting very concerned about Gate Stars. They are always late to the play right now, and now they do lose first turret as well. That is going to be feats going the way of Istur Zestral. And Desamis, he goes in because he kind of has to. He can't afford to wait any longer. But Bull is not even in this fight just yet. And by the time Bull kind of arrives, Desamis is up a creek with no paddle. We are seeing the strength of the tools used to survive the equalizer. But Bull, he's up another creek.
Desamis, though, is there and ready, and there's the counter kill. Bull holds fast with a needlework, and a massive scissor chop knocks down Miryu. They get a bit too excited in that bot lane, and this Gwen, when it's actually allowed to be in the fight, following on from your point, is pretty deadly.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel like, pulling on my point, it's funny timing too, because we just talked about how Bull didn't back up Desamis. And then we cut to Desamis backing up Bull. Desamis did go running in. Bull's dead to rights as well. So, hey, come on, Bull. You got to give back a little bit. And maybe Bull's just waiting, for the 2-item power spike, waiting for the Nashor's Tooth to start carrying. But it does feel like it has to be Bull. Desamis' time has come and passed. The Xinjiao was an early game champion. He didn't have the impact you'd like to see, but he did certainly bridge the gap. And now it's time for the Gwen. It's time for the Azir to come online and start popping off. It's time for Kai'Sa to start looking for single targets to burst out as well. We already saw it once with Snaker. It's only going to get better for Morteus against Snaker in specific.
Yeah, my dude has shot straight into the Infinity Edge second item. It's now 1.3. Yeah. He's actually the biggest lead on the map is Morteus over Snaker. And this feels like the least camera time we've had on any players is kind of this matchup. But Morteus has just exploded out of a very equal lane to now being vastly ahead. Has basically a full item lead over Snaker, who's just sitting on the tier and the tier 2, I guess, tier 2.5 boots from the Triumphancy there. So this is now big for Morteus, and this could be another Kai'Sa carry performance. If he keeps going like this, he is very, very deadly in the fights now.
Yeah, and he hasn't even cashed out his call. That's still sitting in inventory. So he's got even more gold in pocket. And the reason why we haven't seen Morteus and Snaker was because we only saw one kill. Everything else has just been farming and rotations coming through from them. And Morteus has been doing a fantastic job of that. IE, though, their macro this game has been better. Their rotations have been better in terms of objectives. Now they secure second turret of the game for themselves, and it's the mid-outer. They're in perfect position with vision to rotate towards this dragon. It's so point. Once again, where is Cade Stars? Where is Desamis? 2 screens away. He's not going to get here in time, and they know it, so they're not even going to bother.
Yeah, they're just backing away again. Dragon's going to go down. The Atakan is now alive. That's not a ruinous Atakan, is it? We're 4 kills to 2. Why are we getting... Riot! Why are we getting ruinous Atakan?
Because it's not based on kills anymore. It's based on damage being traded.
Still, so but... Who's doing all that damage and not die? Maybe it's just Summit. Maybe it's just Bowl and Summit just going at each other.
Miryu and Kissy are trading pretty heavily too. Like Miryu's been trying to get into it.
Weird. Anyway, okay, fine. So we have the dragon stacking Atacon. So IE would love to get their hands on this one. They have all 3 dragons stacked up right now. They've got all 6 grubs. That would make them vastly more powerful. And if they're going to use that macro advantage, that's what they want to see. However, Summit coming on the bot side to try and stop Bowl getting this turret will manage to keep alive at the cost of the equalizer.
And that is a very, very low cost, to be honest. I'm not foreseeing a huge fight necessarily breaking out. And for IE too, with how the game has gone, K-Stars aren't pulling the trigger anyway. So with the low cooldown on Equalizer, just use it to clear the wave. It'll be back up in time, right, for the actual team fight. That'll be okay. And I'm looking at Bowl to maybe try and take advantage of this somehow. It's going to be hard to do it in lane, but you've got teleport available. K-Stars... You're actually up in gold, but they're so leery of pulling the trigger. Like, just force something. You'll be fine. Trust.
So, the only kind of potential wrench in that plan, I think, is the Miryu of it all. Because the last time we had a fight, Miryu popped up and just absolutely murdered Desamas trying to escape in his ultimate. He has still got the 2 kills that Isurus Estral has a 500 gold lead over Kissy, and as, you know, approaching that second item mark, he can be a very big kill threat in these fights, and does have the mobility, is clearly playing pretty well today, and I think that element could destabilize VKS, and if they're maybe not all buttoned up on the way into a fight, if they do get a little bit hasty, if they leave the door open for Miryu, that could be the way that Isurus Estral, I think, continues to walk away with the fight wins.
We'll have to see, and if it does come down to late game, to be fair, Isurus Estral, what they showed us back in Split 1 was really good decision making in the mid to late game. That feels like their comfort zone. Ackerman misses, hits the wall instead, goes in. But it might have worked to bait in Trimby. Okay, Trimby's good. He's slippery. He's in. He's out. I am getting very worried. And if I'm VKS, I'm terrified right now. Look at this top side of the map. It is completely lights out for K-Stars. It is all red up there. And the objectives are up there. Atacon is up there. Baron's going to be there in 2 minutes. And K-Stars, are we just going to lose Atacon as well? Is it still another objective lockout from IE?
So they're doing it on Vision. Bowl has already secured that bot lane turret. Summit was going bot lane, then went mid lane, then pivoted back to bot lane. Both of them have TP though, and Isurus Estral, I think, no. Once they saw they were doing it on Vision, they don't want to commit. Do they know that they are still on Vision as VKS engage them in the jungle? Joseoto slams to Summit into the wall. Miryu on the flank, coming in from the left of your screens. The TPs are in, but Desamas' ult is running out. IE trying to peel back. In goes the Akali. Deep into the backline, finds 1, finds 2. The entire bot lane sectioned off by the IE mid laner. Summit arrives late, gets early exhausted though. Snaker is still around, can offer the damage. The rockets coming out from the Corki. 3 versus 3 in the jungle as it's 1 for 2 thus far.
Miryu still leading the charge on the hunt. Ackerman only just started his recall, so no backup coming anytime soon. And K-Stars, this is what happens, Trajan, when K-Stars refuse to pull the trigger. IE gets their pick of the situation. And sure, look, K-Stars force them off the Atacon, all good and well, but they still don't have full vision or control of the area. And unfortunately for them, you're playing the enemy jungle. I wish they would toggle the vision a little bit so we can see exactly what it was that K-Stars was looking at, but I don't think they had eyes on Miryu.
Oh, they've got eyes on Kissy right now, who have gone to the grey screen. Miryu is just hit the 5th kill, and that was that Akali kind of chaos element in that last fight. Off the back of it, must be said, a beautiful 3-man Skarner ultimate from Jose as well. Morteus trying to get stuck into the fight, walks slap bang into it, and that sets them up for Miryu to come into the flank. Just picked up another kill on that Azir, and has gone right back to the same flank position. VKS need to be very, very scared of that.
Yeah, VKS can't contest this, and that's why they're not going to. They're going to push up mid lane instead. After the last fight, by the way, the one before they went for the Atacon, Miryu picks up a Shadow Flame. And if you thought he was a problem before, you can't fight him whatsoever now. And I'm looking at VKS roster. They don't have like a point-and-click lockdown to deal with this Akali. Right now, you're trusting Trimby to be able to stop the Akali from just running amok, but every time Trimby has to go in, he's not there to peel back for Morteus, for Kissy, and that's really giving Miryu the freedom to just kind of run roughshod over Vipo K-Stars. And for them to reply, like, yeah, it's got to be exhaust from Bowl, I guess, but that leaves Summit free to equalize.
Yep, and Snaker as well on the Corki is now hitting that second item. Spike is starting to catch up just a little bit. Still very far behind, mind you, but is going to hit those Corki spikes. Now, we can see VKS have used the reset timers from IE to pick up the Cloud Dragon. It's not going to be a 4-stack Cloud Soul for IE, but they have got the Ruinous Atacon. If they get that next Drake, they're only going to get even more value from it, as IE may be about to get aggressed on. Ackerman hooks in fact, ults onto Morteus. There's no follow-up ready for it. Summit on the flank, Kissy coming around the corner, Desamus again holding that front line. Here comes Miryu now as Ackerman's gonna fall to VKS. Bol has the needlework to keep him alive. Trimby hunting for the Akali, cannot find her in the shroud, and they just take that one kill and run back down the lane.
And for how good the engage was from Kadestars, from how quickly they collapsed, that was a lot closer, Trajan, I think, than anybody would have liked to see. And Miryu isn't done yet.
Doesn't get clipped by the Shuriken, but still had the ultimate, and that is just done and dusted. So it ends up still support for support after that late kill.
Kadestars had to commit everything in the kitchen sink to kill Ackerman. I just sent Miryu on a mission with Jose Deodo in pocket, and they find Trimby, and that does mean that the Baron doesn't get played. The collapse coming in, you can see how quickly Kadestars are going to get here as a whole. Now, this could have been one for IE if the equalizer landed, but it kind of didn't, and Desamus with the Crescent Guard isn't really taking the damage. Morteus not getting tagged was the key part, and that was what kind of allowed them to follow up. But you're seeing where the lack of easy lockdown is coming to bite them. Shroud comes down from Miryu, and Miryu is effectively invincible at that point. There's nothing that can hit him. He's untargetable. There's no big AoE that can really punish him, because the AoE is very directed from the side of Kadestars. The skill shots are very singular. It's really hard to lock him down. And then Miryu, once that's down, he's repositioned, his team's ready to back him up, and he just goes rolling right through once again.
EKS, you can see they want to contest, maybe even thinking about trying to find a punish, but they are a little cautious now as the last fights have been struggles for them. Hackerman again hooks in, doesn't find a target. Miryu on the top left right there, looking for an angle into the backside, but VKS have just been bullied out of that top river, and the Baron vision control is now entirely for Isurus Estral. Still 3 minutes left on the Dragon. They're going to head back and pick up this mid lane wave, so they're not necessarily making deep inroads into the VKS side of the map, but they are able to push them off something if they commit members to it.
Except for Miryu, who knows he's perfectly safe and untargetable, and nobody can match him in the 1v1. Miryu, yep, he gets to shove that wave topside for free. We see Bol trying to answer on the bot lane, but there's a critical difference. We just mentioned, like, Miryu doesn't have anybody who he's scared of. Like, Bol can't handle Miryu right now. Whereas on the other side, Bol can actually be stopped by Summit. He's not really hard winning that matchup. Trimby?
He's been discovered. There's 3 people here, and Trimby does clip the Akali. Endo the ults pushes out of the shroud. Ults over the wall. Does have another E and a Proto Bell, but it's not enough to get him to safety. Shutdown picked up by the Kaiser. And more IE members came in to help, but they've served themselves up, and they don't have their fed member. Good equalizer. The Scholar ult pulling back the jungle. Do they have the damage to finish it off? Yes, they do. But they are still at a man disadvantage. Snaker trying to maneuver in the 1v2, but has found himself on the wrong side of the map. He's not getting out of this one and cannot find a kill to get out with.
IE lives by the Miryu, they die by the Miryu. It's so unfortunate for them. And for Kadestars, time and time again they try. They finally punish Miryu on that side, and they might find more. Jose Deodo is so tanky though. I think you're better off looking for Summit, but Kadestars, they're looking for neither. Their eyes are on the prize. Objectives are worth more than kills.
Deodo still in the area, has the HP and the summoners to deal with it, and VKS know that they don't have a good way to stop him. They're just going to back away. But here's the replay, and Miryu, finally, Kadestars just do their homework, and they find him out.
Yeah, and I love the Emperor's Divide there to actually shove Miryu out of the shroud. It wasn't quite enough by itself. They still had to commit the Killer Instinct by Morteus to secure that, but it's fine. Once that happens, notice the utter lack of damage on the side of Isurus Estral. It's really only Snaker. The equalizers from Summit have not been having impact, not because he's landing them poorly. That was a perfect corridor. It's just like we talked about. The Gwen and Xin Zhao can largely ignore it. Everybody else can get out of it. And Snaker just gets isolated in such a rough position. He's the big damage threat the moment Miryu goes down. You need to peel over him.
Trimby, the one on the flank right now, but he's getting caught up and slammed against the wall, and he can't get out. Jose picks up the first kill. Miryu in deep, looks for Kissy. Another beautiful equalizer keeps them slowed down and burning as Snaker following up with the rockets. Kadestars will escape. Just Bol left on the flank, clearing some vision out. But how does he get out of this situation, RMC?
He doesn't. He's got no mobility spells. He's running the exhaust, which is down, by the way. So if IE wants to collapse on this, they definitely can. They are trying to reinforce him as fast as possible.
Comes the Hallowed Mist.
Wait.
Summit going very, very low, and now he's run out of it. Gets knocked up here. Another Scarlet ultimate onto the Azir. Has to slide to safety as well. The Samus on the front line will finish off the Rumble. Snaker doing what he can, but the Crescent Guard helping keep the Samus alive. Slam on the wall from Jose. Ackerman and Miryu dropping low. Morteus finds the window. More Miryu in deep to keep that momentum stopped in its tracks, dipping and diving, shrouding and going into visible and visible, and Kissy now will be able to hunt him down surely into this brush right here. It is going to be the kill, but what a crazy fight in the bot lane, RMC.
A huge shutdown in Trajan. The story is starting to change. We've hit the tipping point. It was IE all the way every day for the first 20 minutes of this game, but K-Stars, their skilling is starting to kick in. It starts with the bow not dying, and it just kind of cascades from there. But for now, K-Stars, they get the kills, and they're able to get a dragon. Their second dragon of the game, only Trajan, but it does feel like, I believe it was the last dragon they picked up. So the momentum really is swinging in their favor, and IE, they've got to be a lot more careful how they want to engage these. So I mentioned Bull was sort of the big tipping point, right? I was shocked that Bull actually started winning this 1v4 situation, and Summit almost goes down. Miryu wants nothing of this. He needs to wait for his cooldowns to come back in, and then he goes in and takes out Bull. But Kissy, Morteus are alive, and they are free-firing. For a second, I got worried when Jose Diodo turned on Morteus, but Kissy's zoning everybody else out, and Miryu, once again, is stuck at the back waiting for cooldowns. He's deadly when he gets those cooldowns, but the sustained damage and the multiple threats that VKS have are starting to be able to overcome that. Miryu can only kill one at a time.
Yes, such clutch play by the Akali to get what he could out of that situation. Mashing the keyboard, trying to nail him with a Q, trying to desperately scrap his way out. But sadly, will fall once again and retains 9 kills for the Akali, no more than 1 on any other player on Isrus Estral. So VKS, yes, it is hard. Yes, they are having to scratch and claw for every inch, but they are dragging out this lead.
Here we go again. Miryu on the split push. Miryu's on the pick.
Ooh, gets pushed back. Azir. Kissy is ready. Forces the stasis. Gets away from some of it. Ults through to the edge of the fight, but is slowed again. And will not be able to escape. Kissy now picking up the credit once again. And Bowl wasting no time to head onto the bot turret.
And I feel like we've seen this story, this song and dance before, Trajan. We saw it just yesterday. IE had a good mid game, they had a good early game, and then it just seems to all fall apart as we get later and later. The decision making gets a little bit suspicious. Snaker and Ackerman pushing down the mid lane as Baron is going down. Bull has already taken inhibitor turret on the split push, and Snaker Ackerman, they don't get to sit here. The empowered recalls means that K-Stars are already back to base. They're trying to look for Bull, but notably, no Miryu to secure this kill.
They've spotted him waiting right here. He does have the TP and gets away. Bowl will get away scot-free with the bot tower already taken down. So the K-Stars finally have started to leave Isrus Estral on the back foot. The damage totals in this game, unsurprisingly, 10k clear of the next closest target is Miryu.
Yeah, but the problem is if you add up the damage totals, IE's not that far ahead, unfortunately. Right? Because Snaker, his damage is really, really low. This Corki is not doing things right now, and that's a bit of a shocker. In the laning phase, I agree. Snaker, Ackerman, not the best laners. But in the team fights, that's traditionally where Snaker has taken off, and he's not been able to do so in this game. Again, he's late to this fight.
Hook into the front line, they get the knock up, they get big damage onto the Azir, in fact, slides away, but will he survive? He's burning down, he's going to fall, but Bowl now on the flank, forces stasis from Summit. Snaker and Ackerman have to peel back, Miryu and Jose eliminated, all carries down, it's just the Corki left, without a kill to his name, and without a team to back him up.
And tell you what, I don't want to see the total damage. I want to see the damage after this fight as Snaker gets absolutely melted. Because I don't believe he got many autos off. I think his damage was really, really low. And Morteus ends up being able to survive the Miryu dive, able to find the counter. And just like this, IE, our first split, first seed, the only LTA South team to take a game of LTA North. They're going 0-4 to end week 2.
Another tumble down to defeat for Isrus Estral. It looked like a different story in the first half. It looked like we'd finally see them start to put that experience to good use. They were doing better in the lanes. They were getting good ganks off. They were moving better around the map. But as the late game rolled around, suddenly it all started to crumble too much on the shoulders of Miryu. He kept getting caught. He could not get the value he needed to get. and they just had no one else. They had no one else to pick up the slack for Isra Estral today.
I'm gonna be honest, Trajan, when I was looking at this team, I was looking at Summit, right? Like, to pick up the slack. You dropped Fertile for Summit. This Rumble, once again, it felt like it had very, very low impact. And unlike Robo's Rumble, he couldn't rely on the rest of the team to really just kind of pull the weight while he was sitting in a side lane, trying to draw pressure away. It's not so much the Rumble. It's not so much the Rumble pick itself. Again, I think VKS dropped it very well to nullify this Rumble pick, but if that's the case, then maybe don't be dropped in Rumble so early if your team can't play around it.
Yep, it seemed like they just picked it for the lane, and the lane was okay in the 1v1, but it's not a 1v1 game. It just isn't. And Summit ended up losing out on this lane in this game on this day again. And VKS now 4-0. Now, do you think we saw any more from VKS than we've seen thus far? Because I'm still not sure that we've seen that kind of last piece that would mean I would favor them against the other teams that are performing well. I think they have gone round the houses and defeated all of our strugglers at this point, but we haven't seen them against Pain. We haven't seen them against Furia, and that's what I'm really looking for now.
Fully agree. Yeah, I do think right now Gators haven't been pushed to show more than they already have shown us, and they're a good team. They're bordering great right now. And like you said, they just need that little bit of an extra spark. The match which I actually think is going to be more interesting coming up for K-Stars will be the one they have next Saturday, which is Leviathan. Because if Leviathan returns to week 1 form, then we will see whether or not VKS has that clutch in them. Because even in this game, it didn't feel like they clutched up. It just felt like at some point, they just outscaled and they correctly identified that IE is just Miryu. We can shut down Miryu, and Miryu's not playing safe.
Yes. It's I mean, at some point, like, when he was trying to take up those early flank positions, VKS were just going, hang on, we just lost the last 2 fights to these Akali flanks. Let's just go and look for him. Let's just go and find him.
Yeah.
He's got to be here somewhere. He's got to be here somewhere. And they were right. And there was no answer for Isra Estral. They didn't have, like, a backup. They didn't have any way of helping him. They weren't doing something anywhere else. It was just like, well, the Miryu Gambit failed, so I guess we lose,
Well,
you know?
It's about how well the teams can learn, right? Like, VKS learned.
Yeah.
We got flanked twice. We don't let it happen a third time. IE did not learn. Miryu got picked twice. He still went back to that side lane with no vision, no cover, no backup.
Yeah, a bit of a disaster. Unfortunate. So VKS going to head to 4-0. Currently our only 4-0 team. I think they can only be our only 4-0 team now, right? I think everyone else has lost one at least once.
Yep. Yeah, we have an undisputed number 1, and we have an undisputed number 8. And
yes,
everything else in between is in dispute.
It is very much in dispute, absolutely. Now, we're going to head to a quick break just now. I'm going to head off, and Orbital is going to come in to replace me. RMC, you're sticking around for the last couple of games, so enjoy that. Thank you, everybody, for watching our first couple of games. Of course, if you like what we're doing here, feel free to follow, possibly even subscribe and Prime if you wish, if you enjoy it. If not, that's fine. Thank you very much. I'm going to head off. We're going to go to a break. I'll be back in just a few minutes with game number 3.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Game 3 of the LTA South. It's between Red Canids and Pain Gaming, and we've got a new face with us today. It's Orbital. He's not my clone, I swear. Orbital, would you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll hop right into draft?
Yeah, hello everyone. I come from the northern side of the Americas and all that fun stuff. I am here. I am very, very excited to be here. I've been watching the LTA South a little bit and very much enjoyed a lot of the crazy action, a lot of the banter, a lot of the fun that these players put out. And I'm excited to be able to start it off with Pain as well as the Red Canids, who obviously these are two teams that have a lot of history here in the LTA South, of course, with the previous iterations.
Yeah, and we're right into draft. It is going to be Red Canids on the blue side, actually, for the first time this split. And Pain have only been playing red side as well, so kind of an odd situation. Pretty much meta bans coming out, an interesting Ivan ban instead of Maokai against Karaoke. And we're already seeing, setups of a Wombo combo coming through from Pain.
Oh, of course. And for Pain, it's the idea that, hey, the Yone has obviously been highly prioritized between some of the tops and mids recently, so I really, really do like it. But for Roamer specifically, it's a high-skilled champion that can bring a lot of value, but especially picking it into the Sejuani, and now you see the Mbessa on there, I'm also very curious, but the Akali as well, seeing more hands checks makes me very excited from the Red Cannon side.
Yeah, and we're talking about Wombo combo from Pain, that the Yone set up for the Misfortune double AD, with potential Lilia that does get locked in for Karaoke. Yes. Not a champion he's particularly known for, but it's a great carry, it's great AoE. And Red, I feel like they're doubling down on sort of the hands identity that we've been seeing develop from them with Mago on the roster. And if this isn't Akali for Mago, FMB can play it, but Mago was the one who played it. The last time we saw it was on day 2, where he got a solo kill in lane in the first, 7 minutes of the game, I think? It looked great to start, and then everything kind of fell apart. So this feels like maybe a redemption pick into Roamer here.
Listen, you get the redemption, you get the happiness, and then it's like, okay, everything else can tumble. You let the sides go. But we now take a look at this bot to top side focus. Obviously, because of the Mbessa as well as Misfortune, we're seeing that kind of shift in the ban phase. You see the Cassante on the top side, which Weiser, of course, has been playing a lot more of those kind of carry styles. So the Cassante is just like, hey, we don't want to let it go into the Mbessa. We don't want to have that option available, which I can appreciate from Red's side. And then the Ashe and the Ezreal, both understandably, Brun say, you don't want to give him some of that versatility, but as well as that consistent damage source.
Yeah, so both teams still looking for supports for the team. Red, Bruncy still looking for his AD carry. And for Pain Gaming, it's worth noting as well that while Weiser has been playing carries, with the Lilia pickup in the jungle for Karaoke, I would like to see actually a tankier pickup for Weiser. He has the depth of pool to do so. The Gnar is still potentially an option that could come through if he wants a bit more lane pressure while also still having that sort of tankiness to team fight with. I don't know what Shitan's doing with all these hovers right now. Like, we already know it's going to be Misfortune bot. It does not go mid lane. Like,
I would love to see just a random ADC toss around, but you go ahead and throw another kind of heavy fighting on the top side. The Camille coming out for Weiser does fall in line, but to see it toss against an Mbessa, this is going to be a lane that we are starting to see kind of that live or die, the volatility could be coming out.
And I do suspect this is because we didn't see any support bans pretty much. Like, Poppy could be a bit of a support ban, but because of that, there's so many options. Kuri actually wants that counter pick to get that winning lane for himself and Chiton as well. We see the Kaisa being locked in for Bruncy. We saw Morteus pop on it just last game. And yeah, Red, they are 100% just going for skirmish, like just dive champions with the Akali, with the Mbessa, with the Kaisa, and now with the Rakan as well. Chiton is not going to have a fun time on Misfortune.
Oh, you know what? You pray for a good sign, but if you don't, you have teammates that can back you up, because this is not a single threat composition coming out of Pain, which I do appreciate. You have the Yone, you have the Camille, you even have the Lilia. If Lilia is left alone, if you burn everything onto Chiton, granted, yes, Chiton is going to be the easiest one to catch. You take a look down the line, it's there. But does Curry wish to actually go for an option that will deny a lot of that engaged tools? You can use that row buffer and you can use the Alistar as well. These are both great engage and disengage, and they are going to lock in this Alistar, locking down that Rakan and making sure if the Kaisa jumps in as well, hey, you got a rebuke in there.
Fair enough, and I actually would have preferred the Rel. I do feel like the Magnet Storm into the Akali especially is such an important tool. We saw what happens when Akali gets to Shard last game. Kissy using the Empress Divide constantly to shove her out. Magnet Storm can do the same thing. But this is Curry on your screen right now, who is so good at Alistar that I do feel the confidence he has in this champion, and I have the confidence in him as well as a Pain fan, to be able to execute this champion and be able to punish the Akali and the Kai'Sa if they are looking to get in here.
For better or for worse, you're a Pain fan. That's what that is right there. Granted, for both of these teams, though, they are sitting at 2-1. For the stakes of this, they are looking to try and secure their second place here in the placement stage of Split 2. And you know, that can lead to these fun types of situations where we do see kind of that engage tools, or not only that, the high skill cap, which mainly Mago and Roma I'll be looking at in the mid lane, both still hoping to kind of show their worth on both of these storied teams and be able to take a lot of that spotlight onto themselves.
Yeah, and I do feel like while the teams are at a tied score of 2 wins, 1 loss apiece, the way they got here is not the same. We'll start with the Red Candid side of things here, Red Kalunga. Their wins are over Loud and Leviathan. And Loud in week 1 is not the Loud we just saw today. They were looking hopelessly lost. They looked like they had international hangover, and they didn't even go to, well, I guess they did go an international event in Sao Paulo in Split 1. Whereas you look at, and their loss was the Kate Stars, who have been looking generally phenomenal. They are 4-0, the only undefeated team so far this split. So they haven't really been tested, and Pain does feel like a bit of a test for them. Whereas you look over at Pain, they got their wins over Loud and IE. Again, not necessarily the most telling, though they won it in stellar fashion. Their loss was to Furia just yesterday, and that's a huge stumble for Pain Gaming. So for Pain Gaming, they're trying to correct ship and make sure that yesterday was just an anomaly and not a trend, whereas Red are trying to prove that they really are good enough against the top teams.
That all starts in this game off on the right foot, as we hope you can go ahead, put in your votes as you know, both Red and Pain are going to be having some fun. Well, Doom and Karaoke, okay, I was wondering what was going to go on, but Karaoke just like, hello, I see this as Wani, and now Cheeton as well as Curry are running Frosty out of this bottom side, so already some management pieces trying to get information and a lot of those wards down. The ward from Red is actually going to stand over there on those Raptors, and then the ward over on the Red buff. On the other side, Pain as well as Red, both getting identification markers down for where the junglers will start.
Red Pain lost. They didn't clear the ward. They saw it and they couldn't take it out. Rest in pieces. Yeah, well, it's good at least that Pain are aware where that particular ward is. And with a Lilia, her early game ganks aren't particularly potent. She does need that lilting lullaby to really make things happen. The lane setup as well, at least pre-6, is not great for her. So the tracking ward is more just to make sure that Karaoke is actually clearing out his jungle and not getting cheeky and sneaking into the enemy side and stealing away camps, especially the Raptor camp that Sejuani, well, Lilias enjoy taking, and Sejuani's aren't particularly adept at taking that.
Right now, though, you are seeing that Raptor camp be pulled away just out of vision mid lane, though. Mago and Romer, these two that we stated are kind of fresh in here, are duking it out as well as always. You can already see that this is going to be a nice little free passes. All lanes are getting into the dancing mood. On the bot side, though, it's Brunsei and Frosty that are trying to step up once this level 2 hits and get a little bit extra down as soon as that wave crashes.
And that's why you're seeing Titan and Brunsey just attacking the minions. They're trying to get that level 2 as soon as they can. Misfortune enjoying the benefit of the double up. Mid lane, though, Mago getting the initial push, and that lane is so volatile. We saw Romer and Mago going at it right from the get-go. Like, as soon as the melee minions hit, they were hitting each other.
That's why they're pretty much no potions now. Roman just popped their last one, and they're like, all right, I gotta stay up. And granted, you even went with the Doran shield as well, so Romer understanding that this matchup is going to be difficult. You went with the Grasping Undying. This is a very sustained level style, and Mago is also trying to just cheat that down. Says, hey, I got the energy to spare. I don't run out of it. I mean, Romer doesn't either, but this is also allowing Doom to actually push on up because Red have opted for this position. You're stealing blue buff as a Sejuani.
No, Sean, that's hilarious. And Frosty and Brunsey moving up actually might have tipped their hat. I think if they didn't move, Karaoke would have no idea. And unfortunately, Karaoke's okay. But because they did move, that's why we're seeing Karaoke not even bother to go down and finish clearing there. Look what he's doing, immediately responding onto the blue side. And Lilia clears faster. So he's going to be happy with this, might be able to take more. Pings are coming down. Mago is too low on health, and FNB is stuck dealing with Weiser.
The other option as well, I don't know if Doom is going to be able to try to read this, but there was one camp taken via Karaoke, so they are going to try and match and make sure that Doom is able to grab, I think, their wolves as well, and Karaoke should understand this. So you go ahead, grab that blue buff. You're also going to try and walk your way back. Mago's currently sitting on the ward, so Karaoke cheating towards the top side of this map. In comes Weiser, and this could be A very bloody roll, depending on if you're going to get out or not. But Carioca hits that Scryer's Bloom, walks their way out, is now going to route into the Scuttle. Romer trying to catch Mago on the rotation back into mid, but it's not going to happen. So everyone, after a tense and dangerous invade on either end, everyone gets away with their jungle.
Tense and dangerous for us, Orbital, but welcome to the LTA South. For Pain, it's just another Sunday. This is what they do. It's their bread and butter. We have predictions from Rose. I'm wondering where are those channel points, Rose? Because if it is, I know why Pain are at 88%. Just dumped all my points into Pain.
I was wondering about that. I was like, RC, you definitely tipped the scale there. Right now, the scale, though, is tipping for FMB and Weiser in the top lane, as they're looking like Mago and Romer with their HP differentials and both sitting with a couple biscuits in their own. They're going for some of that sustain as well, but we talked about this. We saw the Mbessa early. We knew that it was coming out for FMB, and Weiser opting for this Camille is a very interesting test, as it looks like Weiser is going to take the first back.
Yeah, we do see this matchup quite often. Camille is able to match with Mbessa's killing later on. The lockdown is very, very helpful to make sure that Mbessa can't just dash around everywhere, which is sort of a hallmark. And I did like the pickup, especially because you're dealing with the Akali as well, and the Kai'Sa. There's a lot of champions who normally do look to reposition and kind of dash out of danger's way, but you can't do that when you're locked down with the Hextech Ultimatum. Both supports into the mid lane right now. Just gonna pop up, say hi. Curry actually wanting a little bit of action. There's no kill threat here. Like the mid laners aren't 6 yet, so it's literally just poke and just asserting dominance, if you will.
I think it's also just saying I can do it, and maybe playing into the mind games, even if we do get to see the mind games. But ADC versus top laner right now, as Doom goes right back in, and I love this call. You know this time that all the camps are respawning, and Carioca gonna go ahead and get their wolves back. Mid lane, though, a test for Romer. Level 6 should be hit on either end very, very shortly. And as soon as that level 6 hits, maybe we get to see that Duke out. But Carioca being forced to go ahead and step outside as both Doom and Frosty opted for this. And remember, you have lesser members because Weiser is down in the bot side because of the lane swap that Pain chose, putting Cheeton and Curry into that top end.
Yeah, and really good macro play and decision making coming through from Red. Not something that we normally see. Red historically has been known as a team with a lot of hands and very, very questionable minds, and whether the decision making is solid or not, right? Even back in the days when Cheeton was on Red and was the heart and soul of this team, it was like that. When Aegis was the core and backbone, it was like this. But now with Doom, I'm liking this decision making because he invaded first. He knows it respawns first. And because of the lane swap from Pain, he knows that I can do this for free. I can get Dragon for free. And now they might even try and contest the grubs. One already taken. Lilia very quick at it. But can they get all three from Pain?
I mean, Pain opting into the LTA South of go for the grubs over anything else. But of course, you're not going to get that last one. So it is smited away. Very nicely done by Doom. No little extra feet behind. But it is a 2-1 piece. Pain should be looking at the second set just as well.
A literal thank you for the leash, as Doom just gets to walk by, smite it, and take it. Now, there is a bit of a mismatch happening, though, because Frosty did rotate up to kind of back up on that top side. It does leave Bruntsy in a very awkward situation of trying to deal with a Camille who can lock him down now, Hextech Ultimatum. So you're seeing Bruntsy try and play as close to turret as possible. He wants to make sure he doesn't get so far out that he can't retreat to safety.
For the moment. You just get everyone realizing that, okay, we all made our moves, the macro game is done, and we're not going to see too much more of it. Carioca walking over a pink ward here and saying, what more can I do? A little bit of a drop in, though, as this is a level 4 Frosty versus a level 5 Curry. And FMB just trying to take the most of it as well. Cheeton trying to step up. Currently has a wave over Bruntsy in the total CS gap, but that's going to be the bullet time. You go ahead and just snap up that wave. You're going to miss the cannon, which always feels a little bit bad, but you know, you clear what you can, and because the grubs are done, most likely going to alleviate and bring yourself back down to that bottom lane.
Control ward dropped by Romer just in time to see the one dropped by Frosty, and we'll be able to clear that ward out. For Pain, yeah, it sucks to kind of miss the siege cannon, but they're looking at the bigger picture here, and they want to be able to clear that wave, get a reset and a better lane swap to come through. Bruntsy doesn't know!
That's going to be a nice little snap up, but you're safe. You're safe.
Yeah, Weiser showed a little bit on the bush, and you could see like Bruntsy, very aware, immediately went running for the hills, got to safety right from the get-go. Isn't going to suffer for that. Now, Romer, living up to his name, roaming up to that top lane, getting that wave shove in. while Titan and Curry have moved into the mid lane. So we're starting to see the bot laners, the duos, trying to get control of the map that way. Pain with the early rotate gets the extra plate topside and in the mid lane.
That extra little gold always feels pretty dang nice, especially since it's red that are actually a little bit behind in the spacing. We always see them kind of chasing the lane swap situation, and Dragon, of course, going to be up in about 2 minutes. But, 2.5, I should say. But of course, the next grub set should be up in 2, and maybe that's why Doom is already fluctuating towards this top side, going for their blue. And we haven't seen too much of Doom or Karaoke, so it's, you know, Karaoke is just chilling with that lilting lullaby now, and Doom's like, I want to use that glacial prison at some point.
Yeah, and usually we do see Sejuani's get a little bit stuck in prior to level 6. Lilia's not so much. So if anything, I was kind of looking at Doom to try and kick things off. And he did with jungle invades instead of ganks. Now that they're both level 6, I really want to see Karaoke start to get in there, start to take advantage of the pressures that his lanes have generated. Sure, his lanes are down in CS, but you can see that at least in the mid lane, he's ever so slightly up in gold for Roamer. Chiton's has been doing fantastic as well, and he has a lead in the bot side. And with the IE, it's a tangible lead that would lead directly to team fighting strength.
I think that's why we are not really looking at those gold leads. It's all about that first item break. Whoever's going to get it for these upcoming fights is going to be that main control factor in there. I mean, I feel like that's what everyone's waiting for as well. Everyone's just like, hey, when is it going to come up? When is it going to come up? When are we going to get it? Are we going to fight for it? Are we going to have everything? Well, you know what you are going to have is a nice little piece of those TPs, Wiser and FMB, which to do so, you can go ahead, recall, get those items in bank. FMB, though, recognizing that Curry's here on the top side of the map, says, okay, I don't want to go for a 1v1 right now. No reason to expend that or my life. Mago, though, on the bot side, follows in for a little extra damage, but of course, not much to come from it.
Yeah, and Mago's more than happy to take that trade right now. Yone, without the Blade of the Rune King, is not at his strongest point. So, whereas Akali, you know, once you hit that level 6, it's really about getting the perfect execution to start being able to win those 1v1s. Pain, though, their macro is still solid. This was why, after week 1, we thought they were the best team in LTA South, bar none. They had a very good understanding of the game, and they're clearing out vision. Curry just barely dodging out on that flail as Frosty's looking for the flank.
Honestly, I'm kind of curious here. It looks like Red have actually been able to run Curry as well as Karaoke and Titan Cheaton away, mainly because Wiser doesn't actually want to lead that lane. Now they're calling the TP from Rover. This is going to be a fight, but of course, the Grub's already taken, and it's down to just one more. Who is going to be able to pick that one up? It looks like it's going to be given over to Doom. Doom still has a smite, is able to grab it, but is a fight going into out. Glacial Prison, able to step up and out, and now Frosty comes in from the back end. TP a little bit late here, but Red are starting to duel. Bullet time barely does any damage, but the first one does go the way of Karaoke, and now the resounding fight, though, where are the other 2 kills going to come in? It's a 1-for-1 thus far. Mago, though, chases over the wall, is able to find another piece. Frosty able to help out, and in this 2v2, it looks like Karaoke is going to be able to get it. One more swing of the staff gets it. Wiser eliminates, and on the other end, the third fight somehow brings it to a 3v3 overall.
It's a bloodbath, and I don't even know who ended up actually picking up first blood in all that action, because it was insane. But you know what? Pain are going to be happy with it. They did get their kills kind of stacking onto Karaoke, who is a carry. We get to see a repeat of the fight. What shocked me was Doom actually getting that last grubs. I expected a 2-1 split, and the fight was so chaotic. Chiton couldn't do anything. The bullet time is instantly interrupted. You didn't see the setup, and that is how Red want to play. All their champions excel in the chaos. Now, the fight after that was really off the back of Wiser and Karaoke, as well as the disruption that Curry managed to put in. It allows Wiser and Karaoke as threats to continue doing that. On the other side, Romer's dead to Reds. He knew it. Like, there's no way he's getting out. He's just buying time, and him pulling away FNB and Brunsey was huge, was critical, because unfortunately for Mago, we're seeing the same problem with the Akali that we saw last game, which is she's great when she's got her cooldowns up and available, but when they're down, there's nothing she can do. So she needs peel, she needs ways to disengage, and Mago didn't have that.
Well, also the fact is that was a 45 for about 3 seconds until Mago actually joined in. Mago TP'd about 4 to 5 seconds later, so I personally am very curious to see if Mago was there, if that would have turned, because there was a nice little sectioning for the execution. They, needless to say, though, Karaoke was actually able to grab first blood and then another behind, which is why we see that Leandri's already built up, already starting to see that level advantage peel through, and also why we see this type of gold lead. You can already see that spike up for Red at one point, which is up to only about 286, which, keep in mind, that is why this looks so all over the place. Is only within about 600 gold in either direction. But Carioca is going to be utilizing this to try and push forward a little bit further. Level 9 already now in the mid lane. We are seeing Bronze realize they're not in a good space. That bullet time does a lot of work, but now you're underneath the tower, and Curry doesn't have much to play for. Doom ready to help out behind, and Pain realize they're going to be in a lot of pain here in this mid lane. Good little stun up. Cheats on. Can't bring Bronze down, so it is Red to pick up 2 in the mid lane.
And Pain just disrespecting Red on that play. I mean, you didn't have any of the summons available for Cheaton. His mana was so incredibly low when you made that play. It either works or you're dead to rights. Doom, okay. Doom also kind of looking to disrespect a little bit, going for the third blue buff, taking that away from Carioca. But, you know, at least he had an exit strategy to get out. And yeah, Curry just diving in like that. Like, why did we feel the need to do this? And we don't have vision. We don't know where everybody is. And that's why Doom basically came out of Fog of War. Frosty came out of Fog of War. And Cheaton, you committed so hard to that. Your feeding kill is over. And that balancing act they pulled out in the last fight, that 3 for 3, ends up backfiring. Brunsey just telling him, you know, sit down, you know. Like, he knows it wasn't a him thing. This was a team thing. But yes, League of Legends is a 5-player game. It's better that you do it as a team than you do it solo.
I mean, it's a 6-man if you count the mental, which might have been broken right there. Bronze, by the way, didn't have barrier. That was just straight up tanking it with the HP value. That was the best part about it all. But still, overall, as you called, a little bit of an overstep from Pain, and now they kind of have to work their way back. Granted, Carioca wasn't in that mix either. You saw the Seedling go out there, and it didn't really do too much. So I am kind of curious as we see that gold swing right back. This is going to be a fun grab, by the way. At this point, it's going to be my heart rate up, down, and all the way around this side. So it'll be a nice piece of the puzzle. By the way, Hextech Soul will be to play for, which I think everyone in this game will enjoy if they're able to collect.
I still think Hextech Soul is just the strongest soul in general. Like, there's no comp it doesn't work with. And the stats it gives you, attack speed and ability haste, are just so critical and key as well. So not surprised if the teams do get very bloody for it. I already expected that when I saw the nameplates. This is, after all, Pain Gaming versus Red Canids. Both of them do like their fights, do like their scraps. I believe Pain was like one of the highest kills coming into the week. So yeah, that should be very, very fun. Who it's not going to be fun for is Cheaton. Cheaton, if you're ahead as the Misfortune, was already going to be a very tough game. We saw in the last fight, it's really hard to stand and deliver that bullet time. But now that you're kind of behind, it's only going to get worse. Like, if Brunsey sees you alone in a side lane, he's diving that back line. You need somebody to sit back and babysit Cheaton. And I'm looking across Pain. Who wants to do that? Curry wants to get in there. Wiser wants to get in there. Romer wants to get in there. Maybe Carioca will, but that's just because he's a good guy.
Where's the Shen when you need it? Where's that safety in the back line? It's just like, give me a shield. Every ADC is just begging, give me a shield or something like that. And Brunsey's like, I don't even need a shield right now. 2-0-3, by the way. We have to call that out, as now we get a fight around this Herald. TP coming this time early for Mago, which we are going to be very excited to see. It's going to be a 5v5. Mago trying to rotate around. No vision as well, so this could be a clean pinch. Herald dropped down to about 50%. Fight off on the side. FNB is going to get caught on, but Red are still trying to bait around. Look for the Herald fight. Mago goes in, finds Cheaton, but it's still going to be neutralization in behind. Mago, though, with a slice through, is going to help get a double kill. You immediately fall behind, though, as Pain is able to clean up. But now Brunsey is unleashed. Brunsey now going to get chunked out by Wiser, as it's all back and forth. But at the end of the day, it is Pain Gaming to have the triple on Wiser.
Welcome to the LTA South Orbital. I'm so glad you got this. TDS had a really good debut here in the LTA South game. Rev got the nastiest games, unfortunately. I felt so bad for Rev. He got like what we used to call the CBLCK games, where nobody was dying. But this is good old CBLOL between two Brazilian teams. The fight itself is so chaotic, and it's insane to me that Titan actually even got off the bulk of that bullet time. Unfortunately, it's onto the tanks. It wasn't doing that much damage. And for a second right here, I thought Mago was going to be able to carry the fight. But this is the crux of the Pain composition. It is damage overload. We have 4 threats and a Curry. And Curry is doing his job tanking things up. He's playing really, really well around his Unbreakable. And Mago can't kill everybody fast enough. If Wiser survives, if Carioca survives, if Romer survives, any of them can carry. If Cheaton survives, it's because Pain just wiped Red.
If Cheaton just survives, Red just didn't do their job, and I think that's a fair assumption right there. It's just like, we're sorry, but that's like baby step number 1 getting in there. But Wiser, huge showing right there, and I love that you called it, because now we get to draw eyes towards the top side. We were talking about FNB and Wiser as these two that might want to duel up, but again, they are the scaling. They are going to be looking for that damage source later. Wiser has now accelerated and bumped their pacing up, has a Triforce in hand, and is now looking for that second item immediately. Not only that, with the feats going over to of Pain, you get a little bit extra buffering, which for Weiser has gone into the steel-plated boot caps, which is awesome to have. Get a little extra armor in there where FMB can't really cut through. But now all eyes from Red are going to be on Weiser and be like, ah, crap, this Camille is going to be that threat at the end of the day that we actually have to watch for outside of Cheaton.
Yeah, and as the game scales up as well, the Camille will be able to handle him best in the side lane. And if he can start handling Mago in the side lane as well, Reds start to get in a bit of a bad position where they have to team fight. They don't have a choice anymore if they can't win on split pushes. And their team fighting, as we said, it's not a front-to-back team fight. It's all about causing chaos, looking for flanks, and looking for action to happen. It's working for now, and it will continue to work as long as Doom can tank. But the moment Doom starts melting to a 4 damage threat composition, that's when it gets really hard for Mago to be able to find these flank positions. And that's when we really get to see the mettle of this rookie, of this player, of this hyped up solo queue phenom, who was supposed to have made his debut 4 years ago. Back in 2021 was the last time he played in competitive, and he was supposed to be fast-tracked into CBLOL at the time, unfortunately due to personal issues. That didn't happen, and it took him till now to get his shot here in Tier 1.
That shot might be a big one on this Akali. You have the option to get to the backline. That flank, by the way, looked good at the beginning as well. The TP early. This time around, it's just the connections didn't work as well. So now you go back to the drawing board. Now you take a look. It is going to be Otacon spawning here in about 10 seconds. Red is now set for their own as well, as Brunse is now limit testing it a little bit. Realizing there's so many here. Boars to go in, and you still get the 1v1 at least. But that was a, oops, I messed up. All right, and he even looks over and says, yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah, guys, I got the kill. I know, I messed up. He gave a bounty over to Romer. That's a little bit scary, because this Yone can do a lot of the same things Akali can, except more in a teamfight fashion. Doom dashing over the wall, thinking about looking for the engage since the AD carry, the big bullet time is unavailable, but recognizing that, okay, I don't know if I can win this, and more importantly, I don't got my damage threats with me. Mago is top side, FMP's bot side. We get the replay onto this, and you can tell this debate, the pings actually came down. They saw Curry coming on the top side, they didn't see Karioka and Romer, and Bruncy knew he was going to win that 1v1. Like, even before that happens, like, oh no, Chiton, please no. Yeah, okay, so he sees signaling to Chiton, I got you. And Chiton should know this. Like, Miss Fortune is not designed to 1v1, she's designed for the team fight, but he's still up there baiting, and you know what, I'm kind of okay with it. You're not the big threat carry. If this happens later on in the game, that's actually a win for Pain if you can remove Bruncy off the fight early.
Such a huge amount of gold, and I gotta agree with that one. FMB now trying to do a bait of their own as Weiser realizes they're not in a good space, does have flash, but instead chooses to ult real quick, try and slow down time, because take a look at where everyone else is. Karioka trying to draw their way in, Curry being stopped a little bit by Frosty, but still gets the double knockup, and right now Pain drawing yet another bait. TP coming in a little bit late, but it's stopped on the far end, so it is a 4v4 and a 1v1. Mago took a lot of Pain in there as well, and Pain brings the Pain Roamer with the 1v1 win.
And with the chase, they're continuing on. Weiser has TP as well, so Red have to realize that if we look for the re-engage, get ready for the teleport of full health Camille to come looking for us. Good clearance of wards from Frosty and Doom there to make sure you don't get flanked by Weiser. But Pain winning out on that, and I feel bad for Mago, because Mago's trying to join the rest of the team. That gave Romer free time to be able to pump out the damage to get that knock up to win that trade, and Romer, he's starting to come online too. We talked about Mago's story. Well, Romer, you know, he's a Korean import into North America, into NACL, who didn't quite work out, wasn't quite able to dominate the way he was supposed to. And I feel like LTA South is kind of a second chance for him. We get to see the replay. It's straight up just a TP, and Romer just landing a perfect ultimate. There's nothing Mago can do about that. And between these sort of high damage assassin-esque champions, burst champions, it's really a question of who gets the initial bit of burst damage. And this time, it was Romer.
By the skin of that fate sealed at the very, very end. But you know Romer was like, I got that all day long. At the current moment, though, these are kills for kills' sake. We now have Otacon on the top side. We have Dragon up in about 30, and considering Pain are sitting on 2 of their own, I think they would, of course, prefer to go for that Dragon coming up here, put themselves on Soul Point, which is why we're seeing kind of that flood of just about every member, as Red are also reading that like a book.
Well, why not both? You could potentially look for that, because nobody can really answer Weiser on the top side. Romer can always be up top with TP in pocket if he wants to kind of rotate down to the Dragon. But for now, Weiser is looking for the flank. As Shelly got dropped mid, there's no chance to 6 the turret.
Oh, and Weiser is actually in the complete dark, so meaning that they have no idea where Weiser is. That's going to be a jump forward.
Romer?
And Romer realizes they can't really go in. Weiser now pops out of the fog of war and is now going to try and
Where's
dance,
the
but
backup?
that's going to be
Bullet
the
time!
ultimatum. Bullet time on 2, but no one really falls just yet. Finally, the health bars drop, and once again, Pain with the damage overload burns through red cannons, and they are all going to fall. It's a 3-for-1 piece as Pain Gaming take that battle.
And it's FNB and Brunsey, the last one standing from red. It feels like the stalwarts on this team who've been around for a while, but they can't find anything. Pings come down on Atakan. I don't think they can take it. And Karaoke's alive. You can just throw a bowling ball down there and see what hits.
Imagine you steal with the seed. Imagine you steal with that piece. That would be a crazy moment. But they're going to try and go for it. And I don't think it's spotted as
They
well.
don't
Keep in
know.
mind, the wards were gone. There were no more wards around. They went ahead and pinked it. So it looks like
Throw
the
seed?
ceiling. I think it was able to catch. It was able to catch. So now you have to back away.
Okay.
Will Atakan reset? We're seeing it kind of peel out, but the time
It's a
is
free
little
leash.
low. No, it's not. And how much HP is it going to draw back? None. Pain just get a leash cross map and are gonna grab both neutral objectives. And take a look at this Weiser with a great fog of war gank.
And I was a little bit concerned when I saw Weiser going in, the rest of the team wasn't there, but the lilting lullaby into bullet time combo, that is a tried, true, and tested combination, and it works. It absolutely just melts Frosty. There's so much damage that came down onto Doom, and we said this before, the problem for Red is actually Doom, or the timer for Red is actually Doom. As long as Doom is tanky enough to survive stuff, Red's comp will do phenomenally. But the moment Doom gets taken out early, they've got problems, and now Doom finding the engage.
They do find some sort of engagements, mainly to try and get Frosty out of harm's way. And Weiser yet again finding Mago on the edge, allowing for a split fight. And once again, Pain have the damage. Romer hopping over the wall with that breath of life and says, cool, I'm gone, no worries. Let's go ahead and continue on this as Karaoke is on a killing spree. Lilting Lullaby only on 1, but that's all you need. Doom underneath the tower. Weiser outside of the tower, and same with Brunsey as they are taken down. This is Pain Gaming starting and continuing their role of dominance. 5 kills up and 3.3k gold in their bank as they look at this Baron.
And this is the quintessential Brazilian bloodfest, right? When a team gets ahead, they stay ahead a lot of times because the teams just keep clashing over and over and over again. And for Red, unfortunately, that's how the comp operates. Right? We're looking for skirmishes. That fight was not a bad fight. In the jungle, multiple forms of entry, multiple walls to kind of dash over. But Pain are just stronger. And no Mago equals no kill threat onto Titan. And now, Pain, they're doing burn while fending them off. Mago's still looking.
Oh, that's all they really needed. And right now, Mago is just like, I don't know what I'm going to do here, guys. TP coming in here as FMB might be able to turn it around. HP bars are a little bit low, though, so Red might have found the opportunity, but no, in comes the tanks. Even Curry's getting in the mix with their first kill of the game. Doom on the wrong side of the map. Can't take the portal either, so it is going to be the gate for Doom. Weiser going to chase down that Sejuani. And it will be a lovely Baron and then some. Pain Gaming deny more and more.
Wait, I think there was a non-zero chance that Doom could have killed Weiser if he actually just fought instead of trying to take the game.
Right.
Weiser got real low there, but I want to highlight too, Red didn't get any kills in that fight.
Nope.
They didn't kill Curry because the buff of life was on Curry. So yeah, they just fall further and further behind. Baron in pocket for Pain. They're just looking to accelerate, and this, you know what? I don't hate what Red are doing. This is how they play, right? They just keep throwing, and eventually maybe something lands. But Pain, they look fully recovered from yesterday. Fury out macroed them. They didn't out micro them. And in this game, Pain's micro is on full display.
It's been amazing to watch, and honestly, I couldn't ask for a better welcome here. Getting to see these matches throw down, and getting to see Weiser, Cheaton, who by the way has only died 4 times. I say 4, but considering the number of fights, I feel like it could have been more. You are still looking like a pretty nice damage source. You're 2.5 items up. You have the boots, the Swifty boots in hand. So it's like, yeah, let's keep trying here. And granted, yeah, you have died a few times, but you've done your job. Everyone on Pain, though, getting ready for taking down these inhibitor towers as fast as possible, as well as possible, waiting for the waves to crash.
Yeah, I think they got the push they wanted already on that. They want to reset to spend all the gold that they did pick up. We're seeing sort of 3 items come through on most of the members of Pain Gaming. And the Baron for them here, it's not meant to end the game. It's a little bit early for that. They weren't prepped up or set up for that. What they really want to do is look for that Hextech Soul. Spawning in a minute, because Pain have all these advantages, they will have better setup around this area, and they really do need to sweep away all the wards. I feel like if Red come back into this game, it will come off a flank TP.
And look at that. Nice 3 at the top. Wiser, Karaoke, and Romer all claiming the top spots. And right now, that's going to be the end omen. Maybe they found it. Cheaton gone once again. But it's a 4-player knock-up here into the Lilting Lullaby. Fate sealed will seal the fates of more than a few. Mago able to get out of harm's territory, but Wiser on the chase. Frosty is going to die, but underneath the tower, Karaoke still dancing, waiting for Curry to get the knock-up. FMB trying to run away as far as possible, but there ain't no way for you to leave. Wiser with a chunk and a half as it's a double for Wiser. Mago will run, but it's still 4 for 2. Wiser push the ace and gets it. Pain with the chase and a half to bring Red to their knees.
Well, Mago will run, but Wiser will fly with Baron buff and 10 seconds before Frosty, Brunsey, and Doom come up. Pain, they're going to look to try and end this as fast as they can, and with double ADs, it's doable.
No, it's not just doable. They will do it. They stamped their game on, and they will move to 3-1. A stalwart way to finish up the first half of the single round robin here, and you have to give them a lot of credit. Cool under pressure. Brunsey got out to a great lead, but Pain Gaming made Red pay so heavily.
And I do feel like for Pain, there's a bit of a statement game to the fans saying, okay, chill. We are still fine. Everything is okay. We are still fine. And wonderful performance of that. For Chiton as well, this is a very uncharacteristic game from him. He's not that big carry that we're used to seeing. He basically played a support role and allowed his teammates to be the carry. And I think that is a statement for Pain Gaming, where for so many splits, it's felt like they've struggled. Like, Wiser can be a carry, yes. Chiton is definitely a massive carry, but their mid lane has always been sort of I'm a utility pick, you know, I'll play around the rest of the team. Even when they had Tinones, it was still an issue they struggled with. And now with Romer, with this Yone, with the Corki he's shown before, it really does feel like Pain has become the complete package. Damage compositions are now an option, and not just an option, but a strong one.
When all the options are strong, you have to look at so many different avenues, and for Pain, they're just going to overload you every single time. And I have to give a shout out to Karaoke as well. Obviously on the Lilia, great lilting lullabies. The whole reason that Chiton was even feeling more present than normal on there with that bullet time. We talked about the fact that it was very difficult. We have to give credit there to that matchup, and they knew what they were doing. Red, though, they fought their hardest. Again, a little bit of a slow start, and granted, we saw Brunsey really pick up the pacing, so this other squad that has now fallen down into the 3rd and 4th, not out of the woods yet, and obviously here in placements, still a lot of time to grow, but of course, running in to the damaging factors, I mean, where does Red go from here? Do we get to see them still try and play around Brunsey a bit more, who is starting to, you know, fill in on that kind of ego-style play?
Well, with Red, that was always the question of this match, right? It wasn't so much that we think that Red is necessarily a top team. They played against some of the worst, and now they're playing against some of the best. And they're losing to teams like Pain, like BKS. They're beating teams like Loud and Leviathan. So they are pretty much middle of the pack, which is where we kind of expect them to be. And for Red, I don't even think they played a terrible game necessarily. They just played their game. It looks bad just because of the way these two teams, the style they play has this effect where you're not going to get close games. It's going to be shut out one way or the other, or it's going to be a complete chaos storm that goes 50 minutes, right? Like there's nothing in between.
Of course. And now we got to do our all-time favorite thing. Who do you think is MVP of this game here? Because I think it was a very, very fun time here. You got to pick one, RMC.
Well, Orbital, I'm going to give it to you as our fresh face here on the broadcast. You know, right. Everybody knows I'm a Finnish actually, so I'm terribly biased. But you, on the other hand, you're coming in fresh eyes. So who would you call as MVP this game?
All right, listen, I am a fan of dying too much, so I give it to Cheaton. No. Cheaton did what Cheaton needs to do, but that's kind of the bait at the end of the day. I will say Karaoke, though. Karaoke, really nice presence in there. And a lot of those team fights, whether or not we want to give it credit to, the Lilting Lullaby was obviously such a huge factor in why the bullet time worked, why a lot of these fights started up. So I would sit there and say Karaoke. I'll follow in line. Obviously, Pain Gaming, everyone is rooting for them. RMC bet all the points in there, swung our poll in 15 different directions. So, you know, I'll leave with that one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Karaoke certainly deserves it, and this is why I was so happy to see the Lilia pick up, and I want to see more of it. I feel like he's been put on tanks for so incredibly long. Personally, I was leaning more towards Wiser a little bit. I think his Camille performance was immaculate, but yeah, I think Karaoke is a fair shake, and I'd be happy to give it to him. And Orbital, with sort of one of the questions of the 2-1s being cleared up, we now know Pain now moves up to 3-1, sitting at 2nd place. They don't have sole possession of it just yet. Our last match of the day looks to W7M up against Furia. Furia, the team who just beat Pain yesterday, they're sitting at 2-1 too. So they could contest Pain for that second spot, or looks like W7M could pick up their second win of the split and potentially move Furia down to third and give Pain sole second place.
It is a really big option. So, of course, we will go to a very short break and get ready for that last game of the day. Now, before we go, we do want to give a big shout out. If you enjoy what you see here, you enjoy seeing me, if you've seen seeing Trajan or RMC, of course, who has been here the entire games today, please go ahead, give us a follow here. If you got that Amazon Prime, please go ahead and give a little subscription as well. It helps us out here as we are trying to bring everything to your viewing pleasure. We will go to a very short break. Once we come back, the LTA South will continue with our last game of the day. With Game 3, we had the micro, we had Pain showing us what hands are. Now, we get to zoom out the scope a little bit more. Furia dropping in here after yesterday's matchup against Pain themselves. Going to be looking like that macro-centric, start to take over the game a little bit more. Maybe not the hands as much, but Fluxu also hoping for a little bit of a rise of their own. Both teams trying to show that week 1 was just a thing of the past.
Yeah, and with Fluxu W7M, their win yesterday was huge for them. It is their first win as an organization since they only started existing in 2025, and Split 1 was very, very much rough on them. It was very, very unkind. With the double elimination format, they got 4 games, 4 losses. They were out. So this was only their 7th game yesterday, and being able to pick up a win there is huge. But the way they do it, Orbital, is the interesting things, because both these teams, W7M and Furia, are our youngest rosters, or I'm not sure about Red's age right now, but in general, these are very young developing rosters. Furia has all in on macro. Under ThinkCard, they have the best macro in the LTA South, and we saw it on display yesterday. Fluxu W7M, though, embraced the old Southern philosophy of hands, hands, and hands. So this could potentially go the way of Red versus Pain like we saw last game, or it could go any which way. I don't know fully what to expect from both these teams right now.
And that's what we're going to be watching for, as right now we got Fluxu over there on the blue side already with the Vi, the Jace, and the Rumble, but picking up the Gwen and then hovering over a Volibear. On the flip side, you go ahead and take a look. It is that Kalista as well as the Varus and the Ivern, and a lot of really nice tankiness and shielding in that bottom lane. But a hover and a half. The Ashe is now locked in, as well as the Braum there in the bottom lane.
Okay, so already huge setup coming through from Fluxu W7M's bot lane. Marvin and Geeks, while they were in CBLOL Academy, was definitely a carry lane, but it feels like here in the LTA South, having moved up a tier, they are willing to play more utility for the team. Give, most likely Hidan with this Gwen, a big platform to begin carrying on, and we've seen Gwens take over games. For Furia, though, with Ayuzi in the bot lane, they want to make sure they give carries, and as much as I'm not huge fans of blinding misfortunes, it kind of works. It's going to have problems into the Braum, but remove the Braum with the Skarner, with the Rakan. There's very good setup right now for that boat time.
Well, the setup is going to be in multiple different situations, and right now, Furry are thinking the same, saying, hey, we can't let that engage happen. We can't let IU actually have that struggle on that misfortune and say, hey, things are going to go south if we let the misfortune get caught. So you take away the Xin Zhao, you take away a lot of those extra follow-ups behind the Crystal Arrow, which I do appreciate. Now taking a look on the other side, though, a band to come out in that mid lane and once again take away those safety options of Vladimir, not allowed to dip into the pool, as is very, very targeted there, I think.
Yeah, and a slightly weird pick. We haven't seen a Vladimir come through in LTA South just yet, but I believe it was played up in the LTA North, so maybe taking some notes. I believe it was Mifo who played it. And Gigo is known as a player who's willing to whip out a lot of weird things. He played the Volibear, I believe, was back in day 1, which kind of backfired for Furia a little bit. We saw the hover come through as well on the side of Fluxu W7. I believe that's probably a shout out to Gigo's Volibear there. And yeah, they just want to make sure that there's no more amps coming through for Furia's Wombo combo team fight. Fluxu W7M with the Ashe, with the Braum. They're not going to be able to play the sort of skirmishing, self-agency compositions that we saw earlier today. They need to team fight as well, and so they want to make sure that they're removing tools that make it even harder for them.
Of course, there's another getaway mobile champion in there. The Ahri denied away from that mid lane. Tut's not going to be able to play that one. And now we get into the picks. So, are you going to blind the mid, or are you going to go ahead and try and challenge the top?
What?
And it looks like we are going to challenge the top. Fresh champions abound. It was a Vladimir that we thought was going to be a messy one, but it's the Fiora up there.
And I feel like every time we see a Fiora, that is like a massive challenge to the other top lane. It literally says, I outhands you. In the LPL, Fiora is that champion that the best top laners will play into absolutely anything. And for Gigo to pick it into Hidan right now, he's just saying, I'm better. Gigo traditionally has been our solo kill leader in Brazil for a very long time. Most splits, he is the one who gets the most solo kills. So understandable with the hands, and he's kind of doubling down on it. Akali and Yone to round this draft out. Furia. We pivoted really hard on Furia from great wombo combo until just like, we are just going to outhand you. We are just better in the solo lanes.
But it looks like it's being matched on the other side. You talked about Furia being able to have this nice macro-centric gameplay, and yet they are taking pieces of that. Well, even if it's macro, we still want to challenge the Akali to go ahead and match the Yone, just like we saw in the previous matchup. But now on opposite sides, one was on red, one was on blue, now those are swapped. My eyes are just kind of all over the place. This is such an interesting piece, and with both teams also drafting a gank-heavy focus inside of that jungle pathing, this leads me to believe that this laning phase is going to be very, very prominent, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, the moment those solo laners came up, I 100% agree with you, because whoever gets the lead is likely going to be able to continue snowballing said lead. And with the Yone Akali matchup, we like you said, we saw it last game between Roamer and Mago. And the problem is that I do favor the Yone side of it. I think Yone has enough indiscriminate skill shots that he can hit you even in the Shroud. And he just has higher teamfight impact as well. So a bit of a bold choice picking the Akali as a counter pick for Tuts. And the other thing too is when I think of Tuts, I don't think of Tuts as like a huge carry individual player. He has clutched up in the past, but if anything, I think of him more as a player who plays for the team compared to Fu, who literally has to put the team on his back and hard carry them at times. So it almost was like a statement from Fury right now, from Gigo and Tuts specifically, to say that, okay, now we've shown you the macro, we want to show you that we've got micro.
And granted, if you're looking at the placement state moving into the second half of this stage one piece, it is a whole piece. Like, you're sitting there going, okay, hey, we already have 2 wins. Maybe we can afford to mess around. But granted, you don't want to be in that position where you're seen as messing around. So let's go ahead and dive onto the Rift here. It is going to be a very nice one to watch here. Fluxo W7M going up against Furia here. This one will be a test that I'm very, very excited to see for Fluxo. Are they going to get another win under the belt? Are they going to continue this kind of rise to prominence here, and are we going to see these lane matchups be as explosive as we wish? And there's already safety on multiple sides. You can see that Grass of the Undying on 3, and I believe that's 6 total Resolve Tree mainstays.
Well, the teams are very resolved to win this. I guess Gigo. Yeah. This is not the first time Gigo has done this, where he's like outside the bush and he thinks he's in the bush.
I think this is also a moment where Marvin is like, hey, you shouldn't do that. As the ADC was on the top side to give a little bit of a happy welcome here to the Rift. It's not going to mean too much, right? You go ahead, get some damage. That doesn't really do much, but it is that warning of make sure to stay in the lane or make sure to play smart with awareness in there.
Sure, and on top of that, both teams know lane swap is not a thing anymore. Not, at least not right at level 1. You kind of got to wait for the lane swap buffs to fall off, or the nerfs, depending on how you view it. So the fact that Marvin's up there, I think, was just to try and get Hidan any sort of advantage he could if Gigo shows up early. We already talked about how dangerous it is to let a Fiora scale, but it is a volatile matchup. It's not like Fiora just wins that out. With a Fiora, it's always a hands check, and if you can set her behind, then the Fiora will struggle. She's not a great team fighter. She's all about the split push. She's all about the duels. It's literally her name. She's a duelist.
It's also all about playing that mini game as you get the last tag of the vital point, and it feels kind of good, and that's why Hidan is chugging those potions like nobody's business right here. This is the other side of the annoying matchup when we talk about, if you want to go for the 1v1, and I think Gigo has really picked that nice champion to do so. What a nice spawn on that week. By the way, this is what everyone hates about the vitals. Yes, there is a set pattern to it, but the number of times that you sit there and go, why is it setting up right there? Why is it spawning on the edge? It infuriates even the best of us.
And I feel like if you don't play Fiora yourself very much, or don't play against it very much, you probably don't know the algorithm of how it spawns when it spawns, which automatically gives the advantage to whoever's playing the Fiora there. Not to mention just the nameplate matchup between Hidan and Gigo. Hidan has been in Tier 1 before, has played in CBLOL, but he's always felt like that player who's too good for Tier 2, but not quite good enough for tier 1. Now, he has improved. I don't doubt his qualifications or whether he deserves to be in tier 1. He does deserve to be in tier 1. But the problem is he's not top tier of tier 1. Whereas Gigo, there's a reason why we call him Gi God sometimes. I remember it was 2022, 2023. He even got the nickname of the Korean Slayer because he managed to solo kill every single Korean top laner in the league during the same split. So Gigo, on a good day, is immaculate and incredible. And this matchup, I am a little bit scared. I want to see Gangs try and influence this top side a little bit. Don't leave Hidan out to dry. Not against Gigo, not up against a Fiora.
Especially since Hedon actually took an early cheater recall just to pick up the cloth armor, already anticipating a chance at getting that that kind of fight on them and just saying, hey, I need to, especially with both junglers actually pacing towards the top side. So Tatsu, as well as Ganks, are meeting for the scuttle. Ganks able to pick it up, but the mid lane is currently employed by Tuts, so Tuts walking away from that one. Fu getting a little bit more comfortable time to farm up there, and there we go. Right now, the question has been posed. Do we have Gigon or Ye God here today? Go ahead and place your thoughts into that poll, if you will.
I don't know if Rose actually made a poll or that's just Rose's comment.
I really hope so, because that's a good one.
It'd be funny though, Rose, if you do want to put a poll up. So, to be fair, so far it's been looking more like Gigod than Gigod. I don't want to call him Gigod yet. He hasn't quite ascended, but he does have his CS lead. And you talk about the cloth armor. It does come at the expense of a teleport from Hidan. He got forced out of lane already. And even with that cloth armor, it doesn't feel like he's really that safe in lane. He is still losing out. Jojo and Ayu also bullying in this bot lane. Remember, we talked about Furia wanting to make a statement about their micro this game with their picks. They are winning out every single lane right now.
Oh, it feels great, even with this cloth armor. Man, my eyes are still drawn to the top side. I know we have 4 other players on either side now, but really, with all this talk now of Gigo and Hedon, we're watching here. Ghost has been popped as well. Hedon trying to run away of their own. One more out, could have taken it. But Hedon is once again pushed out. And this feels great for the macro extension. Once again, Gigo now starting to take over this top lane with the CS presence and with HP.
Okay, to be fair, Gigo did just come back from base with items too.
Yes,
So
yes.
he was able to kind of equalize that. But yeah, Hidan's going to be missing maybe half a wave depending on how quickly Gigo can actually shove this lane. And Furia, to add salt to injury, has already initiated a lane swap to come through. They want to get control over these grubs. If Hidan thought handling one duelist was bad, try a 1v2 on for size.
Worst part, you're only coming back with an Amtomb, which means Ayu and Jojo can run you down if you step up a little bit too far. Wave underneath, you are able to collect most of it, so I think you got a good 70% of the wave that crashed under. But as you called, all eyes are on these grubs. Once again, the junglers on either side stepping up into their top side. Ganks roaming out, sitting on that level 5, not level 6 just yet, but both mid laners, Fu and Tuts, apparently dancing and doing some sort of ritual there in the mid lane, as neither want to step into melee range for the CS.
It's like one of those battle dances, you know, while they're getting ready to all in each other. I mean, they with the Akali, she is level 6, so Tuts actually has all in potential. Fu probably not quite there yet. With the recurve, both can trade well, but I don't know if there's necessarily kill threat. Instead, yeah, they're just kind of posturing. Both teams instead going for the objectives. It is Furia taking away the grubs as we called for with the lane swaps to come through. Ganks able to respond though for Fluxu W7M. It looked like he got caught a little bit off guard by the rotation. He was still on that top side, but was able to get down to the bot side quickly enough to be able to answer back objective trades.
Let's see how well this plays out here as Tatsu already finished with the grubs, or at least partial. I think that was an interesting piece of the puzzle there. I believe only a few have gone over, only 2 so far. So this full take on the dragon will be going the way of Ganks, and now you go ahead and go back because you were possibly looking at the gank underneath the tower. But Hedon playing extremely safe right now, doesn't want to give any sort of presence over. So you go ahead and leave Ayu on an island of your own. Tatsu going ahead and finishing off that last little grub, and it is a full grub camp versus the dragon.
And the delays were, as you pointed out, partially because they were looking for Hidan and seeing if they could take out Hidan, and that set him so incredibly far behind. I feel really bad for him. Look to W7M, they're looking at this bot lane. I don't think this is diveable. And if Jojo ends up hitting level 6 as well, he's a ways away. He's only just at level 5. It's just not doable. So, unfortunately for folks at W7M, great, we invaded, we stole a little bit behind, but Gigo was still farming up the storm. He's still keeping up with Tuts and Fu in the solo lanes, and Furia continues to scale.
Oh, well, you know, we say that, but Tuts looking for the all-in and gets it! The Akali with the perfect execution. 1v1s out Fu.
Okay, I'm actually really scared now, Orbital, for Fluxu W7M as a whole. Their wins have come off of them playing better with their hands, their thrown hands. And we said that they were actually able to match up against quite a few of the teams here in LTA South. But the biggest carry for them has been Fu in this mid lane. This guy has been the hope of the mid lane for Brazil coming up. And he just got soloed out by Tuts, who's not even generally considered one of the best laning mids in the LTA South. Top side, Kigo is already winning the 1v1. Hidan has been put in a hole, and Fear have kept on digging. They brought an excavator to put him down as deep as they can. In the bot lane, Marvin and Geeks aren't your big carry lane. That's an Ashe Braum. They're more for utility come the mid game. How are Fluxu W7M supposed to play out the mid game? How are they supposed to come back from this? Does it have to be their LatAm import ganks?
I mean, I love the fact that you compared it to a possibility of a Pain Gaming situation all over again, and yet for Fluxu, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you have a Sejuani in the jungle. There aren't 4 points of power. There's 2, and as you rightly called, having Fu lose out early is rough. Now, granted, that could have been just that singular position. Fu didn't have the knockup. I mean, it was a good read. You make sure that knockup option is missing. So it was well played, well timed, and Furia should be recognizing that, hey, we've been given a chance here, and right now in the top side, it's going to be another one. The grand challenge has been tossed down. Hidan realizes they're not in a good spot, and now you're pinned into the wall. There is no real out. There's no flash available, and the Impale sets him up for the dinner as Gigo says, why did I get an assist, bro? Why did I get the assist there?
I was red buff, but to be fair, Tatu didn't auto attack anymore. After that.
No.
Like, he's
he
trying
sat
to
there and then
Gigo.
accidentally tipped the plate into their own mouth. That's what happened.
Okay, you know what? That's on Gigo, man. You were the one auto-attacking. You should have been able to put that right. Now, this is on Tatu. They are prioritizing getting as much plates as they can, so demolish proc from Tatu to be able to maximize this as much as possible. And they want to give Gigo a long lane. Hidan is already struggling. Odds are they'll probably have to rotate somebody else up into that top lane to deal with that, and I'm looking at Fu. But if you can lock Fu into a side lane, that really nullifies the amount of impact they have. And for Fluxu W7M, like I said, I'm not sold on this team if Fu isn't initiating, and he's had to do that despite being a big carry for the team. If he's not doing it, often they struggle to find ways in. Yes, I'm aware there's an Ashe, a Braum, and a Sejuani, but still, they struggle.
I mean, it hurts when you say that. I'm not going to lie. If you say that with the caveat of you have a Braum and a Sejuani and they're not engaging, it makes it look even worse out in the eyes. And I have to agree, this is going to be a problem. By the way, nice little engagement on the bottom side. You force out a flash from Marvin. Still has a berry, obviously, but this Jojo and IU, they haven't had a moment to really push their own limits and be able to kind of show their stuff. It's been 0-0s all the way across the board. But now, we're seeing that chance as IU pushes this wave underneath, doesn't want to go for that last plate, wants to go ahead and get a good recall off, as Dragon is going to be up in about 55 seconds.
Miss Fortune is not exactly an 80 carry, which pushes you to your limits. And a few times she does, it's because you don't have setup, which I don't want to see people have to push Miss Fortune to the limits. But to be fair to IU and Jojo, they have been pushing Marvin and Gigs. There are limits in this bot lane. It's the perma-shove going on. They've never been able to rotate out. And now they're finally looking to try and help ganks out on these grubs, but they're being contested so heavily. One grub secured, and ganks has to leave.
I mean, that's all you could really ask for. It's just get one, but that push power could still come through. All you need is a little extra damage behind. Feels good, Furia. With a very nice timing means that they take these grubs, they can immediately rotate down and get a lot of their players into position for this dragon if they wish. Other options though, keep eyes on this top lane. Gigo now has the full weight and ability to grab this tower as well and continue their reign of dominance.
I think that's what impresses me most about Furia so far from what we've seen this game. It's a very low kill game, right? 2 kills in 12 minutes. This has unfortunately been what LTA South has shifted into, this particular split. But while Furia are dominating across every single lane, they are also keeping up the macro pressure, right? They're rotating to these objectives on time, making sure they secure everything. They did the initial trade, and since then, they are looking to try and make all of this happen. They are also looking to be able to rotate faster and get fights on their terms.
This one, of course, is just a attempt to save the tower, but you can't. There is just no way to do so. Gigo goes ahead and takes that first tower with Jojo in tow. Meanwhile, Tatu is on the other side, just messing with ganks. Again, I believe this is just how much can I wait to be an annoyance? And when we see those totals come out here, it is just so high in the position for Furia. It feels so good right now for them to claim most of the top spots. And the dragon will be there, so they're taking, again, this is an ocean dragon. It's a nice one to have on the back end, and if they can collect, it's going to be a Tuts coming around the corner, but realizes Fu is inside of that bush, but that bush is very, very dangerous. Follows up with the chain, but there is going to be a disengaged thanks to that glacial prison. It isn't really going to land, and Tuts is actually taken quite low, but again, this is a two-pronged battle. Dragon was taken by Tatu, and now they can look for underneath the towers. IU snaps at the kill after a tower shot, and it will be 3 total, plus probably another tower to Furia's hands.
You know what? I'll eat my words. IU limit testing on the Misfortune, pushing his limits, securing the kill, having to flash out, but he does get it. Now, Fluxu W7M isn't doing nothing while this is happening. They are desperately pushing in the mid lane. Marvin's pushing there. Hidan was pushing top side, but they're just so far behind at this point. They're not getting any significant gains. They got, I believe, a plate in the mid lane. I think Hidan got a top side plate as well, but that was about it. Furia takes the dragon, takes the turret. First brick as well, and that's both feats going over the way of Furia. They are ahead. And they probably have enough gold in pocket. The 4k gold lead at 14 minutes, that's enough to buy, tier 3 boots on most of their players. We get to see the fight as it breaks out as well. And I'm going to be honest, it's not much of a fight. It's just Furia recognizing that, hey, we are strong. We are stronger. You don't have numbers down here. We can look for the dive. And Fu is just trying to peel off as much as possible. This is Gang's, the biggest tank. The dive just kind of goes through. IU opted to go in. And you can see from the turret, the heat didn't reset either. So that was like high damage as well. 3 shots and IU's dead to rights.
And I think IU knew that as well. I mean, IU immediately flashed out. I was like, okay, we can't do this. I'm so sorry. But still laid it in. You can see with the damage numbers there, it feels pretty dang good in terms of that last little skirmish, as you called it. And they've actually understood that. Furia have said, hey, it's going to be even more so. I want you to take a look at the number of trinkets that they have. 4 sweepers on their end, heavily saying we just want to fight in pocket war. We want to fight with that danger. And it is such a telling sort when Tuts is in there as well, saying, I just don't want anyone to see me as I look to engage in maybe a 1v1, 1v2 position. Yeah,
Fury is basically saying, who needs vision? Certainly not Fluxu W7M, because you will have none by the time we're done with you. And they can do that because they're stronger, right? They believe that they're tanky enough and they can survive the initial and engage. And even if you do find one of them, the rest of the team can roll you over. There's a lot of confidence right now in this young squad of 5. And this is the Fury effect. This is an organization that has always excelled at developing new talent. This is not the first iteration of Furia babies, if you will. In fact, I think it was the 2023 squad that was actually the original Furia baby squad, and this squad has a lot more experience. So they've got young hands, they've got a lot of potential ahead of them, and I love the teamwork and the synergy that we're starting to see build up between these 5.
Well, not just build up, but continue to compound on each other, as now we are taking a look at, I believe, a possible Herald take. You can see it looking to spawn here in just a little bit. That might be the next big play, but keep in mind it's most likely going to be a 4v4. Tatu, though, being able to pin back as Marvin realizes not there. It's a double impale into the bullet storm, and it is just so good. Gang's able to survive thanks to a rock to the back of the head, but there ain't no dive in this tower either. Huge win for Furia as they take that mid lane for their own. Tatu, though, looking for another chance. Round number 2, looking for the pin, trying to chase for Gangs, but it isn't really going to happen, so Tatu steps out and away, says, I don't want to do too much, but no, you swing back in. Very nice glacial prison, though, as the limit testing goes a little bit awry, and a shutdown goes away of Fu.
Brother Tatu trying to send his regards, and let's not forget, folks, Tatu just last year was also on Pain Gaming Academy, the same team Hidan, Marvin, and Geeks all promoted from. So these are his former brothers that he's looking to dive. He does dive for it, but the macro is still in their favor. Arrow just barely goes wide, and Tatu wastes so much time. He buys Gigo time in the top side, almost the top side turret. In the mid lane, it does go down, and we get to see how the action starts. I don't even feel like it's Fluxu W7M making any mistakes. It's a very forced play coming through from Furia, but it works because they're ahead, and that impale was beautiful. Look who doesn't get caught. Gigs with the Unbreakable. That's supposed to be your counter to bullet time, and Gigs could not get in front of them to actually protect anybody.
I want to point out, Geeks was just like slightly short on knocking up IU, or that bullet time would just not have gone through. So it was so close,
Yeah.
and I love just kind of this range. Again, I don't know if it's on purpose or not. This was absolutely on purpose, by the way. I love the fact that Geeks is still there. It's like, dude, we're not playing that game. You already won the fight. Get out of here. But as you call, the macro was still in their favor. Top side tower is also quite low on Fluxu W7M. It is basically a hair's breadth away, but with that win in the mid lane, with the tower broken down, Furia now have control over the Herald just as well. So even though Tatu took that chance, you're still in the driver's seat. You're still able to collect a lot of these neutral camps and take it for your own.
Just what an absolute clinic Furia is putting on right now. We talked about it, the fact that it feels like they're trying to prove that we've got the hands to match the head, right? Like our macro was never in doubt. Now our micro is really, really looking good. And this is why Furia is kind of the neutral's favorite, right? Like you want to believe in this team. They've got the players, they've got the energy, they've got the personalities for it. And now it feels like they're the hope of Brazil, right? They've got the hands that can go international potentially. They've got cleaner macro than ever, I say, as Nuts gets killed on that split push. It's fine. You took the turret. Macro-wise, it's technically worth, and you did get dogpiled on. But Fury just have everything. And then you look at Fluxu W7M, and they feel like they're on the other end of the spectrum, where it's like, okay, there's a lot of young talent on this team, but this is the old development style. This is what used to happen in the South, where we just take a team of talented, skilled individuals, chuck them in the deep end, and say, welcome to Tier 1, get good.
And what a way to do it. You bring out first-time Fiora here in this play. It is a wild way to say it, as Tatu goes for just the raw impale, which I don't think ever really hits. And Fu was like, well, you don't have the ult, so maybe I can actually duke it out. Over the wall, though, nice little drift into sight as Tatu, maybe not as tanky as you wish, but gets the extra shield up. Gangs takes up another tower shot, and there it finally ends. Fu is able to pick up that kill, is now on a killing spree. Gigo, though, realizing that maybe you want to make a play of their own, but that's going to be the TP out. You are going to be able to survive, and you are out to safety.
Good call from Hidan to keep himself alive, but now what?
Yep.
Your TP's gone. You've lost all pride in the bot lane as Dragon has spawned. So that's going to be a free Dragon for Furia that they could have taken pretty much solo. Like, Gigo could have just done that solo if he wanted. They're going to wait for Tatu, so there's no chance of a steal. But for Fluxu W7, it's a series of just putting out fires right now. It feels like they can't think ahead to set up a play because they're just being overwhelmed by the pressure from Furia, and they're answering well individually. But these sort of firefighting responses, they keep you in the game. They won't win you the game. I need to see Fluxu W7M show me a way to get back in. And like we said, I'm looking for the engage, right? We talked about this. You've got Ashe, you've got Braum, you've got Sejuani. Those guys should be engaging. None of them have been able to do so. Where has the last Ashe arrows gone?
To safety value, much like just trying to keep themselves safe. Right now, we got the 1v1 Tuts on the top side. Fu already dancing in. Mr. Olton, this is just a raw damage scaling, but Tuts flashes the other way, and now comes Jojo to have a little bit of fun, and Tuts brings the illegal cage side fighters, and in the 3v1, takes that kill.
It's not a 1v1, it's a tag team battle. Furious tag came in a bit faster.
Where was Fu's teammates then?
That's the question it feels like we've been asking all of 2025. Who and who for Fluxu W7M? Like, there's just... The rest of the team's not there. And the problem was yesterday we got hope. We saw them play up against Issa's Estral, the first seeds from a split one. And Fluxu W7M managed to win that game. And they looked good while doing it. And it wasn't just the Fu show. The rest of the team showed up. Hidan especially, I think, had a wonderful game up against Summit. But this time, not so much. They are massively struggling. Tuts gets dogpiled.
Oh, but even inside the shroud, you can't do too much. But now you're in that invisibility, and you're about to stay alive here. They're chasing so far for this, even the exhaust, and you finally go down, and you get the tower on the bot side as well. So for Fluxu W7M, you are starting to gain some of that value back. Might not be a whole lot, but it's enough to give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back.
Well, they are going to get quite actually a bit off this series of plays, and it gives me hope, Orbital, that we finally saw the Ashe arrow being used to set up a play onto Tuts. And look what they got. They get a mid lane turret, they get a bot lane turret, they get a kill, and they get Dragon to boot. A huge sweep through from Fluxu W7M. What did it cost them? Atakan, which frankly is not that high a cost for them. So love to see Fluxu W7M showing signs of life there. Closing the gap in terms of kill score, though the gold is still about, what, 4,000 gold differential right now?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's going to stay that way until they also deal with Gigo, who has been farming up a storm right now, about 50 CS up in that laning phase. And quite honestly, Fluxu W7M have not wanted to challenge that at all. Every time we see Gigo, it's been a long-range pacing, right? About a screen's length away of just like, okay, you push, I'll take this CS, and we'll keep trading back and forth. Gigo hasn't really been tested outside of the early about 5 to 6 minutes that we saw those pushes, that we saw that gank from Tatsu, and Fluxu W7M are just trying to say, well, let's keep it that way for the next maybe 8 to 10 minutes and see if we can still get a little extra gold for our own. As you can see, the ward's out also, just keeping eyes around the map.
Yeah, and that's wisdom from Fluxu W7M.
Yep.
We talk about the 4K gold lead Furia have. More than half of it, 2,600 of that gold differential is sitting on just Gigo and Hidan right now. So yeah, Gigo is a bit of a tough ask. They find a pick.
Oh, and Tatsu going over the wall. Fu trying to snap afterwards, and that was a little bit close.
Yeah, Tuts has been, Kali's in general, it feels like, have been having a bit of a tough time as the games go on. Ayu, though, did overstep a little bit. He's got backup, he's got friends, and he's got a pick.
And right now, no ultimate, though, as the rest of the team is here. Good body block coming out from Tatu, though. And the Impale on 3, though, to stall out the fight. Allows Tuts to pick up a kill in the middle. Furia bring the 5v5. Even with the needle look over, it doesn't matter. And now here comes the rundown. Ayu with the shots to the back. Tatu with the cleanup. And it is 3-0. Meanwhile, Herald, the 6th man on the bot side. Furia with the kills. Are now going to look to take the base of more heat on. There's only so far you can run.
No.
And it's going to be the base a break and a half as you go ahead and curve your way to an inhibitor.
Orbital, raid boss down.
Oh, no way.
Will kill Gigo. We
No
bridged
way.
a 2.6k gold gap. What did it cost you? Literally
possibly the game.
Everything. It literally cost them everything. The game ends off the pick onto Gigo, and there's just no way Fluxu W7M can do a thing. What an absolute clinic from Furia right now. I think we can say, okay, I know it's Fluxu W7M. I know they're near the bottom of the standings, but with how clean Furia are playing, with the hands they're showing us, the macro they're showing us, is it time to say Furia right now are the best team in LTA South?
I would sit there and posit, yes, that looks so good. And honestly, the call to bring that fight around looked perfect. And off the back of Gigo, who by far, by the way, didn't get any kills. I believe throughout the entire game did not get a single kill. We put, like, at the very end, it was like, you picked up some scraps, right? You did so well. Where's the rest of the team? Come on, guys. You can all get up in the line here. It was amazing to watch. Once again, as you call it, Furia looking so clean. Even the audience very much excited to see what they can do in the future. And I'm excited as well now.
I like, where's the rest of the team? And I look at who's late to the party, and it's Tuts and Gigo. Where are they split pushing? Actually, wait, was that that's at the end there, or was that Ayu? I didn't get a good look on that. But yeah, I mean, that was how the game kind of broke out. And now Furia, once again, that, I believe, is the shortest game of the split. It was like 24 and change. The previous shortest game of the split so far was 26:01. That record was set by Furia versus Sisters Astral, and they refreshed their own record. What an amazing play from them. You know, we saw Pain dominate last game as well, up against the likes of Red Gaming, Red Cannons, pardon me, and how good it was. And it does feel like we're being set up for a very interesting week next week, where Furia will be up against VKS at some point during that week. We'll see, I believe, Pain up against VKS as well. And these will all be sort of challenging matches to kind of see really who's at the top of the table. Will we end up with that sort of three-way tie situation that we used to see all so frequently in Brazil?
One of the things that we also got to look at is also the fact that Fluxu, W7M, even though they lost, even though they are at the bottom of the standings, we still get to see them in the next stage, in the next portion of this. The problem, of course, is where do they go from here? We saw some eyes and some, you know, possible hope come out after that day one. Just yesterday, they showed some light, but now you come back in here. Do we see those hopes crushed? Are those options completely away from them? What, I mean, where do we see them move from here?
I don't know where they can move.
It's a loaded question, I know, but it's like, dang.
They do have some interesting matches. They've got, okay, Pain, Loud, and Red Cannons for Fluxu W7M next week, which is a little bit tough. I think Loud is showing that they're kind of resurging a little bit. That'll be a tough one. Red is still a strong team, and Pain is still top table. So Fluxu W7M, they got to dig deep. They've got to show us. They've got to upset, basically, higher seeded teams. So we'll see if they have it in them. But for now, Orbital on the side of Furia. MVP. Who would you give it to?
Ooh, I want to give it solely off of presence almost from Gigo, as Gigo was just like, let's keep pushing, let's still be this Roman. But honestly, the weird thing to me is it felt so quiet, and this is I think this is what you're kind of talking about before as well. A lot of what LTA South has kind of gone from is, you know, maybe that hyperactive, aggressive style that we just saw in the previous game. But that previous game feels like an outlier. Now we get this kind of calm, collected macro game style, and that leads me to almost say there is no real MVP. If I had to pick anyone, if I had to go down the line, if I had to, I'd honestly give it to Tatu for being in the front line, being able to tank up, be all the way there. Tuts, if you're going for kind of that solo fun out there, but honestly, it was so close from everyone that they macroed it out. I honestly took a look at that last fight. I didn't think they could end it with how slow it was, and yet they just burst on in, took the game in one fell swoop. I give it to Tatu.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really fair. I think Tatu and Gigo, that combination certainly had a lot to do with that last fight. Though the way Gigo, it took everything in the kitchen sink. They literally, like you said, what did it cost them? Absolutely everything. Gi God, fair enough. Yeah, the question we asked earlier is it Gi God or Gi God? Today it was Gi God. That said, I don't think the Fiora is going to work against a lot of the other top laners in this league.
Yeah.
Either, so. Well, I'll reserve judgment on the Fiora for now. I got to see it up against some of the other top laners, but. Yeah, that's all the games for this weekend. 4 out of 7 of the games done. We pull up the standings right now. We'll be able to see kind of how everything has shaken out. Like we said, coming into game 4, there's a clear number 1, there's a clear number 8, and there's everything else in between. Fluxu W7M, despite their loss, are not at the very bottom. They're not even second from last technically because they're sharing that spot with Loud.
Yeah, and IE, unfortunately, rounding out at 0-4. They'll be having to climb their way up in the second half here. But as you said, we are keeping eyes on Kate Stars, just saying, hey, for VKS, you beat a lot of those that have been struggling. We're curious to see how this 4-0, if it's maintained, if this is not just kind of that early steps, you know, getting a springboard in. So I am very, very curious to see how the rest of the standings come out in the next week, which actually starts on Saturday. Once again, just like usual, same time, same place. We're going to be having 4 games, but the difference now is we are going to also lead into Monday as well. There are going to be a total of, I believe, 12 games across the entire weekend, so make sure to stay tuned for that one. A lot of eyes, a lot of action, and a lot of fun to behold. Not just that, you might see some returning faces as well. I know I will be here maybe once or twice. You got Trajan still jumping in, RMC, I'm sure. So many amazing names here with the LTA South, so hopefully we get some awesome names and a lot of awesome games as well. RMC, yeah, also our producer in the back end, got to give some love there. Of course, we want to give a big shout out to all of you tuning into these matches and hopefully enjoying it just as well. If you want to keep up with all the action, if you want to know when we go live, as well as some other fun content, follow us on the socials, LTA South, as well here on Twitch. I believe there's a podcast, a little bit of action around on the YouTubes as well. Make sure to check out some faces, maybe in a lot more relaxed setting, if you will. But overall, the action will be here on Twitch to follow all of the glorious games to be played. Thank you so much for tuning in to the LTA South. We'll see you all next week.